Members, please remember to state your name each time before you speak. Remember that all call votes are roll call votes, in which case you would state your name and your vote. And finally, for any member of the public who is hearing this on a phone or on an audio call, you can hit *9 to raise your hand to speak. The floor will be granted at the discretion of the chair for public participation when we reach that public participation part of the agenda. So once again, you can press *9 if you are on a phone to speak. Otherwise, if you are using the Zoom interface, you should be able to hit participant and raise your hand. Once again, the public will be able to speak during public participation. Board members will be able to raise their hands and be granted the floor by the chair. Ms. Lundgren, are you ready? Can you hear me?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're going to start. I'll hand the floor over to you to begin.
Okay. I'd like to call today's meeting on April 8th at 7:36 to start. I'm not sure how we were going to handle the Pledge of Allegiance. I do have a flag.
Why don't you hold up that flag and we will stand and do the pledge.
The pledge. Okay.
All right.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
There we go.
Here we go.
But we will need our board members unmuted because I will be able to entertain a motion to approve the agenda as is with no changes, but I will need to have someone actually make that motion.
Right. Okay. So I believe Christina Plord would like to make the motion.
So I don't know if it's better to just unblock our board members and then they can say their name before speaking.
Sure, let's try that. And if we don't get any feedback loops, then we can stick with it. So let me unblock all of the board members, and please still raise your hand so Ashley can see who's been asking. Okay. So we're going to go through and give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Michelle. Okay, I think I have everyone. Can all board members raise your hands right now just so we can test that really quick and make sure that I have everyone?
Well, I see Tony still has
All right, so if they raise their hands, they pop to the top and that'll kind of help me get through everybody. Tony, unmute. Rainey, okay. Dana, oops. Okay.
Okay, so we have everybody. Good.
Good.
And thank you for everyone for going through this with us to make sure that we are on the right path.
Well, I'm sorry. Is the phone number correct on the agenda for people to call in?
It should be, yeah. There's a series of phone numbers, and they should all be correct based on what I can see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what came out of the system. So if they can't find, if I know that some phone systems like Frontier, you need to try some of the other numbers, like maybe the US number without any of the other stuff. Trying the US number, not necessarily New York, Chicago, San Jose, or Houston, but trying the US number these two US numbers might be the way to in for some systems. You can also join the Zoom meeting and just do audio as well.
I think somebody's trying to do it on their phone.
Yeah, so I would recommend try to call in on those phone numbers. I have no knowledge that they don't work. When we tested them,
Okay.
They did.
Okay, thanks.
There is a Zoom app too. You can download the Zoom app, and the Zoom app will also work. Okay, hold on. Okay, it looks like Ms. Lundgren that Ms. Plord has her hand raised. Is that, Ms. Plord, do you mean to have your hand raised?
I do. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as is.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, just say Jacob.
Jacob Murray seconds it.
Perfect. Okay, the motion passes. Oh, I'm sorry, discussion? I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to say that there's no discussion. All those in favor say aye. Well, no, we're going to have to go through each one now. So
Yeah.
Jacob,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Rainey,
Aye.
and myself as an aye. Motion passes. So we'll go on to the approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for the March 11th, 2020.
I'd like to make a motion, Christina Plord, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for March 11th, 2020.
Jacob Murray. I'll second that motion.
Okay. Discussion, is there any discussion or any questions, any changes? I don't see anything. I'm just making sure. I'm trying to scroll through everybody's pictures, making sure.
So,
Okay.
Ms. Lundgren, Ms.
Christine.
Yeah.
Christine, you have oh, you're muted, Christine.
I know.
There you go.
Okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get to vote in the last time, but just for the record, I'll vote
I
aye.
want to read everybody's. There's so many people on here. So the
Ms.
approval of minutes, does anybody have any changes? We're good? First and second. So Jacob,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Rini,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I don't see Karen on top here. So Karen,
Aye.
and I would be aye as well. So therefore, the approval of minutes as is passes. Now, Lisa is on here, correct?
Lisa is on here as far as I can tell, yes. I'm admitting a few other people as we speak right now.
I just want to make sure that she's taking the notes and she didn't have any questions, so.
She is, and we're recording it. Let me also, I have not received a text that she's having any trouble, so I think we're doing okay.
Okay, perfect. So the next part is the public participation, and this is what we're going to do with the public. We're going to have the *9 on phone calls, and it will raise your hand, I believe, in the system here. Then we'll be able to call on that. We still are going to have our 2-minute time limit, and Tony, if you can pull his little box up, he will still do the 2-minute timer, and within 30 seconds left, he will raise his hand to give you a guideline to know that your 2 minutes are up. So with that, anyone else can raise their hand. Oh, see the clerk. So Lisa's on here, so she has something.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm unmuted now, just so you know, and I am unable to record.
Okay, you can hear the thing though to do the minutes?
I can do that fine, but you would need to grant me permission to record.
Okay, and there you go.
Thank you.
No problem.
All set.
Thank you, Lisa.
I see that it is recording up in the top corner there, so either way.
Yeah. Yeah, we are recording as a precaution. We already are recording this meeting, so Lisa, I can give it to you, but I also gave you individual rights to record as well.
Okay, so for the public participation, once again, Tony will still be being the timer for 2 minutes. If you raise your hand and when you talk, you have to make sure to provide your name and your address. And you just need to raise your hand so I can click, or Dr. Will can click on anyone.
Yeah, looking for hands. Remember, if you're home, hit *9 on your phones if you're using the phone.
And just a reminder, the way to put your hand up is in the chat. If you click on the participants, and then you see at the bottom of all the names, you click on raise hands.
I see Miss Phineas has her hand raised. You can give her an opportunity to talk.
So, Ms. Phineas, do you have, are you clicking unmute? Because I am, there you go, there you go.
I found it. It was right in front of me. Of course, I couldn't see it. Good
No
evening.
problem.
My only comment is I just want to say I have so much admiration for all of the people in Tolland and all of the towns that are struggling through this coronavirus nightmare. And I know how hard everybody is working and how insane a time this is. I think of all the parents whose kids are home, all of the special education parents who are struggling perhaps more than they ever have. And my reason for wanting to join the meeting was just to hear the COVID update and the continuity of learning plan. And I probably won't stay for the whole meeting, but I just wanted to say that it is so obvious the amount of work that has gone on in this town to, comfort people and to prepare in the best way that that one can. All of your public officials are doing a tremendous job, and we're at the State House, even though we're not there, we're still working. So I also wanted to make sure that if anyone needed anything from the school board, Dr. Willett or anyone else, that that although we're not at the Capitol, we are certainly still working, and you can certainly reach out to us. I do have one question that might come up regarding transportation issues as we get there, but it's just a question. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay.
Great.
Anyone else on here would like to have public participation? Please raise your hand.
Ms. Longren, do you see Michelle?
Just was scrolling down. Oh, Michelle, let's unmute her and get her.
All right, Michelle, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to, it's Michelle Harold, 256 Mountain Spring Road. And I just wanted to, as the former chair of the negotiations committee, you guys are going to be talking about the nurses contract. And I just wanted to be known that it was obviously negotiated in good faith and to the best result for the board, for the town of Tolland. So I just wanted that to be known. I also want to take a quick minute to thank Walt for everything he's done to get us through this. It's been, I don't know another superintendent who's had to start a school year without a budget, have to rebuild a school in an emergency, and now he has to go through a pandemic, all without support from an assistant superintendent and he's still our curriculum director. So I just want to say thank you, and we appreciate all of your effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone. So let's continue on. Okay, Tony is up next for the correspondence. If you could please present the correspondence that we have received. Oh, Tony's
Oh, Tony, hold on, we have to unmute. Go ahead.
All right. You can hear me?
Can hear you.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So we received an email complimenting Dr. Willett for his emails during the beginning of the pandemic. An email thanking the Board of Education, Dr. Willett, and our staff for the efforts being done for the benefit of the children. An email asking technical questions on the Chromebooks. Email asking how people sign up for the free lunch program. An email recommending that we forego the April vacation. Ryder felt that the period of supplemental learning was a bit of a vacation and that it was best for the children to get back into a routine. Email asking the board to request the opportunity to resubmit the Board of Education budget to the town council. The writer felt that one-to-one technology, RAS kids, and an assistant superintendent should be added to the submission. An email sharing the writer's gratitude for teachers interacting with her children as part of the continuity of learning experience. The writer has felt the honest care that the teachers and staffs have for the students. Email asking the board to reconsider the proposed budget. This writer felt that the one-to-one technology, an assistant superintendent, and a curriculum director would have made the transition from classroom teaching to distance learning easier. Email requesting to keep spring break as scheduled. Writer felt that the break was needed by children, staff, and families due to the increased stress of today's environment. The writer also articulated the positive experiences that her sixth grader is having due to have being part of one-to-one. Email urging the board and district to consider eye health as one of the effects during conversations concerning the distance learning. Email articulating the need for maintaining the currently scheduled April break. An email articulating the writer's belief that it would be detrimental to have a break right now. The writer recommends the long weekend and then an extended break in May. Email urging the board to look at the benefits of Lexia and Raz Kids. Writer also requests that the board keep April vacation as currently scheduled. Email stressing the benefits of structure and social interaction brought about by the continuity of learning system. The writer points out that travel opportunities are limited right now. The writer also recommends that canceling April break and maintaining the structure. Email stressing that the 4-day break given by the long holiday is adequate. Email asking how to return the Chromebooks. The writer's children no longer need them. An email supporting a broader budget in light of these in the face of this new world. An email from a student requesting that the April break be maintained in its current place. The writer felt that the stresses of the past few weeks haven't allowed for quality time with the family. The writer was also concerned with the level of effort currently required by the teachers.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda would be points of information. If anyone would like to comment at this time on the board, if you could just raise your hand and then we can just call on you. Oh, Kate, let's unmute Kate and let her.
Hey, everybody. Just a couple things. Obviously, the efforts of Superintendent and his staff have just been amazing, and I'd just like to again congratulate them on all their efforts, formally and in this meeting. The other thing I'd like to do is make sure to wish everybody a happy Passover if that's what you celebrate, happy Easter if that's what you celebrate, and any other holidays that I don't know about, and I apologize beforehand for not mentioning them. But that was really it. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves and being kind to yourselves and breathing. That's it. That's all I got.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate. Tony.
Yep, I just wanted to touch base and thank Michelle for her comment just a few minutes ago. So I was reading through the documents and stuff for today's meeting. That was one of my questions I was going to ask as to when the nurses contract went through the negotiations committee. So if I heard it right, it did go through and was approved on the last BOE?
I believe so. Well, the nurse's contract is up for your review now.
Right, but it went through committee. It went through the negotiations committee?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Would anyone else like to raise their hand to talk? Karen? Karen?
Yes. Am I unmuted? Sorry.
Yep, you're all set.
Giving you a little pause there. Yes, Tony, I was also on the negotiating committee prior to this board, so I was part of that contract.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to speak? Dana. Let's unmute Dana here. She actually is muted.
Yeah, I think some people are remuting themselves. You're all set, Dana. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Dana Philbin. Yes, I was muting myself as to not have dogs and children in the background. So makes our meetings interesting. One is, first of all, I'd like to reiterate what Kate said and just make sure that our friends and families and loved ones here in Tolland are staying tall and strong. Take time for yourselves and try not to overindulge in a lot of media and social media and news and those kind of things. Take a few minutes out each day to take a break from everything that's kind of going on, because it's engulfing all of our lives, both personally and professionally. So just make sure we take care of our mental health. And I'm very appreciative of all the tall and strong signs around town, and the Be Well and all the supportive signs and different things around town. So I'm appreciative of that. And Dr. Willett and Miss Jen Palumbo and all the principals and assistant principals and the teachers, just thinking about what our faculty and staff has done. I know we've used Herculean in the past, but it is the teachers are the true superheroes. And I am just blessed to have two wonderful teachers in my children's lives that are helping guide my husband and I. And I'm proud to be a part of the Tolland public school system. And I'm proud that this school system is helping educate my children as well as our brothers and sisters and family members here in town. So it's commendable what everybody's been doing. And I just want to give you my gratitude for the entire Tolland public school system. This is not something you sign up for when you sign up to be a teacher, to go through something like this. So again, those superheroes are that staff of Tolland public school system. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Dana. Would anyone else have their hand raised? Okay, at this point, I'm going to move on to the student representative report. So if we can have Fisher and Alexandria unmuted somehow so that they...
Yep, I can do it. Let me try to find Fisher. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm fishing for Fisher. I'm sorry, Fisher.
You just, you need to unmute him.
Yep, got it. Hold on, gotcha.
Hello. Let's see if Alexandra can...
Yeah, she's on the list here. She should be...
Awesome. So, I mean, it's pretty much the same for the students as everyone else right now. There's not really any updates for our activities at all, other than the continuity of learning program itself. Students are doing what everyone else is doing right now. We're staying home. Most of us, I'll say, I won't say everyone, but most of us are trying to be socially distant and responsible. But we're doing the same as everyone.
As far as like the G Suite and everything, it's going well. I think that this is the first week that I've had Google meetups with teachers last week, but we're really starting to get into them. I think it's definitely better for us to all see each other's faces and really get to talk to our teachers. I know that a lot of my peers have been enjoying that and getting to see our teachers because we all really miss everyone.
Yeah, and speaking of missing everyone, one thing that Mrs. Philbin said that I couldn't have been more gracious for, mental health. Yes, we are all looking after each other's and our own physical health, but we do need to remember our mental health. In that vein, Mental Health Week has been indefinitely postponed at the high school, obviously for good reason. And it's very nice to see the community taking it into their own hands to just be supportive of each other and just spread the word and keep everyone safe in every way they can. So that's it.
That's it. Well, thank you very much, you guys, and keep yourselves going on that online learning.
We'll try our best.
It was an easier way for you guys to jump in and get to the Google Classrooms for the older grades versus like the younger crowd.
Yeah, because we've got some experience with it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's jump down now to the superintendent's report. Dr. Willett, would you provide the monthly financial?
Yep, of course. Thank you. So as you know, we begin the first meeting of every month with a monthly financial report. This is for the month of March. It's the ninth month of the fiscal year. Things are trending the way we expected them to, although we now have this very unexpected situation. The budget balance of $1,015,023 will be continued to be converted into encumbrances as we move through the rest of the year. This $1 million balance represents 2.54% of the Board of Education's budget. This also reflects that we received a February excess cost payment, as you may recall from other conversations. Excess cost is what we get back from the state for special education. So it boosted the balance up a bit. We expect another excess cost payment sometime in the zone of May, although it's unclear exactly what that will turn out being at that point in time, and it may be affected by a number of different things that are happening right now in the state. So we're trending about where we would have expected to be, but there is an awful lot going on right now, and as you know, we have had some impacts here. We do have a couple of things that I'll talk about when we get a little farther in about the COVID-19 report and the report on the Tolland Community of Learning program. But there are some executive orders and some acts and some laws that will have an impact on some of the financial situation. So at this moment in time, this is where we're at. I can give you a rundown on some of the other noteworthy aspects of it. The salaries are currently under budget, as we're looking for teachers and paras that are currently not that are currently in a leave situation, and there are some money there that is not being expended as we seek to get individuals hired. There's an available balance of $245, but this balance could raise as we get to June. There are a couple of positions, World Language, Math, and Leap Science, that we're looking to fill. So there's some money that is not being expended there while we do it. We have some leave of absences, some maternity leaves, military, and there is also some other staff who have been on leave for one reason or another. So that is going to result in some positive balance in that line item, especially as we head towards the end of the year. Substitute expenses are about the same, although we aren't using substitutes the way we have been using them. We are using long-term substitutes, however. So if there is a teacher who's out, the LTS jumps in, and we are starting to adapt. Now we're in the 7th and 8th day of the program. We are going to be adapting to use some subs in some places when absences are happening. But the LTSs right now are the main uses of substitutes at this point in time. Overtime expenses, we're going to incur quite a few of those as we adapt to the situation that we're in. We have had to do a little bit of overtime that we didn't expect, but nothing that I think will be breaking our backs. Stipends are currently over because not all pay-to-play funds have been fully received. However, we will also be returning some pay-to-play funds for families that contributed pay-to-play for spring that will not be occurring. So we'll have to take a look at where that line is. It'll be an unusual year because we will not be collecting all the pay-to-play funds. We also will not be paying out all the stipends because we obviously won't be paying a stipend for a spring sport that does not happen. So coaches that are in the spring sport zone would not be brought back on during this closure, unless something changes in the next couple of days or weeks. Health insurance, severance, and benefits will continue to have minimal changes at this point in time. And let's see, retirement, course reimbursement, unemployment will continue to progress the way that they would have otherwise. The benefits consultant, as we talked about, was transitioned from Milliman to Lockton, so there's a slightly over budget there. Legal, audit, and service. Legal is over budget, as we discussed in the past, and that will continue to be the case. We still are dealing with the things that we were dealing with before, and so that isn't expected to change. Repair and maintenance, custodial, cleaning, equipment, and technical expenses will continue again as the year progresses. We still have custodians on duty. We're cleaning, doing even more cleaning actually right now. And maintenance and custodial expenses are cyclical. They really shouldn't be affected by this. However, there are an increased number of purchases in this area to deal with COVID-19 because there are certain things that work better against COVID-19 that we're acquiring that we had not considered, that are new that we need to do a little differently. Tuition for out-of-district placements is over budget, will probably remain a little bit until the second excess cost payment is received. And as I stated, the first excess cost payment was received already. I don't know if I said this before, it's about $723,000, $723,233 that we got in. So that's what boosted the budget up significantly. final end of year April budget. We don't really know how coronavirus issues will impact that. So again, we're looking at that. Transportation slightly over budget, but that will probably change in this situation. We're still working on that. We will still probably be doing some payments to the transportation company, but we still have to work out, fuel and things like that, because we won't be using the fuel. Obviously, the company won't be using the fuel, so we're still working on where that ends at the end of the year. The Connecticut General Assembly has laid down some, some rules about that, so we're working through that situation to try to figure it out. Energy expenses have been transferred to the town. I don't think we'll be using as much energy this year, but that money goes to the USIF fund and then is used for things out of USIF that are needed in the district, and the town's got its own side of that. Instructional supplies, equipment, miscellaneous in general are currently under budget, probably will remain under budget based on the current situation. And overall, the month of March, with the district only being in session for 10 days, is on target. There are some available balances. They're going to reduce from month to month. But right now, with the available balances, again, as I stated, $1,015,023.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do any members have a question about anything? Okay, so let's go to Christine.
I unmuted, sorry.
Yep, Christine, go ahead.
Walt, I just had a couple questions about a couple of accounts that jumped out at me. I know you said the stipends, we haven't received the money. When would we typically, since we paid, I believe February 28th was the deadline? When do they process?
Well, right now we're going to probably be behind because of where the situation is. So, there's not as many people in the main office. The stipends would typically be received all the way through spring, but we also have certain activities and clubs that we receive stipends for too, and money for some of those things too. And they sometimes extend a little bit later into the year, but we should and will have a figure on that very soon. But we are going to now have that fluctuation of having to return the stipend money to families that had submitted it for spring. So it's going to be a little bit in flux. And the people that are doing that job may not have deposited it all. Also remember that, March is a transition month for us. By the time we get to April, May, that line should probably stabilize, I would imagine, when we're looking at the April budget and the May budget.
Okay, so the pay to play money it's going to have to come in though first, correct? Before obviously we're giving it back out.
It depends. If we have checks we have not deposited yet, we may just return those checks rather than trying to issue back funds from the bank. And in all fairness,
okay, so then that might be my question. Then I didn't realize there was a check option. I thought we had to do it online. So
yeah,
you can write a check.
And again, I've seen people write checks because they couldn't make the online thing work. But that's true. It transitions to online. I would have to, obviously I'd have to see where we're at with that, but I would imagine that everything that we're involved with right now has kind of put most of that in flux.
Okay, that's
But it's a good question, and I would expect that around this time of year that would stabilize. You're right. So I understand what you're asking.
Okay. Just two other accounts that jumped out at me. I know the benefit consulting service. I know that the switch over to Lockton was an issue with that. I guess I'm just surprised that we encumbered another $27,000 just this month. I thought Lockton, we knew roughly what our estimate was for Lockton for the rest of the year once we did switch over to them.
I'll have to ask Mark why that extra 27 was encumbered. I'm not sure of that off the top of my head, so I'll have to find out.
Okay, that's fine. And then just my last question is, I'm sorry if I missed it with the remote thing here. The professional education services, last month we were over just by about $1,900. So what was the big jump for that one to make us go over by $38,000?
Let's see. Well, I think there are some things again in the pipeline. I think we probably have to cover it in an FFC meeting from the standpoint of, I think that's the best place to do it because I can look at exactly where that's at and tell you, but I do that line will flux a bit.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Jacob?
Okay, so it's been a while since we've gone over this in formal meetings, so maybe we did it already, but I noticed with the course reimbursement, that account, I think in the February was, we had $0 and now it's almost completely used up. I know that they usually put in the requests in February. That should be about it for the year. Am I correct in that, Dr. Willett?
I don't expect a lot more right now, but I never know for sure. I don't expect a lot more right now.
Sorry, what was that last part of it?
I don't expect there to be a lot more right now. I would hate to make some definitive statement, but it wouldn't be my expectation then in April that there would be a lot more. I think we'd probably be seeing anything else now at the end of the year, and we may end up paying in July, out of the New Year's budget for things coming in at that point.
Okay, thank you.
And then Kate, let's go down to Kate next.
I'm sorry, Kate, do you need any assistance here? Kate is unmuted.
I think I'm good. So question about transportation. Since the buses aren't running, do we not spend those funds, or are we contractually obligated to continue to pay? Because obviously the ripple effect, right? If we don't pay our anyway, so contractually obligated, are we still paying transportation even though the buses aren't running?
Right now, what we are talking about is transportation is going to be the payroll. The directive is to pay the transportation firms money to lessen the burden and impact on those companies.
Right.
And that's why I'm in a state of flux about that, because I agree with paying. I can understand, rather better stated, that I can understand the desire to pay payroll, because if we came back April 20th or April 30th or May 15th and there were no bus drivers because they had all found other jobs or they'd gone on unemployment and weren't coming back, we wouldn't be able to operate the district. So the objective is to pay the payroll. But I still have questions about the fuel and other things like that. If we're not expending fuel, I think we could expect to see some funds, not expended in that area. So we're still working on that. But the Connecticut State Legislature has pretty much laid down a directive that funds are transferred to that. And in my opinion, it's for payroll, and it should be for payroll. And that's what I think it is for, is payroll.
I had one other question, and it might be jumping the gun here, but I was just thinking about whether the board wanted to start considering if we have unspent funds at the end of this situation because it's being reallocated in other places, would we want to consider adding an assistant superintendent or to use those funds for an assistant superintendent and some more one-to-one tech? So I'm just kind of lobbing that out there to say this might be something that we want to consider if there is funds left over at the end of this year. So just putting that out there as a little seed to germinate and see what happens. Thank you for your report, Dr. Willett.
No problem. I am noticing more people coming in, so I'm just, if you see me clicking away, I am admitting more people to the meeting.
Well, you need to unclick Dana so she can speak.
Dana, you are unclicked. Dana's muting herself, but I will help.
This is Dana Philbin. When you unclick me, then it tells me to unclick myself. So I have a question specifically about the budget and the educational process that we're currently in. Obviously, we're doing, our new distance learning, our learning at home via, the Google Classroom and those kind of things. We're using a lot of technology, i.e. Lexia, Raz Kids, IXL, different online programs. And those are currently in this year's budget. And I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about how, and again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not any of this, right? So, but if this situation or this pandemic is cyclical, as they're alluding it to be, there are some of these online programs that we have not put into next year's budget that could be paramount for us to continue the at-home learning program. That's more of a statement that I'd like us to continue, like I said, to kind of, like as Kate said, resonate and chew on. It's going to be something that I think that we should embrace and talk about because it definitely has been assisting our folks at home. Our non-educators our family members who have now turned educators to utilize these resources that will not necessarily be available in our next year's budget. The other question is, Dr. Willett, and because we're not physically housing all of our students in the classrooms per se currently, how is that negatively or positively impacting our budget? Because as an outsider looking in, we could say, well, the children aren't going to be in the classrooms. They're not in the school, in the classrooms and under the school roof. Therefore, we could save money through the budget because we're not actually physically teaching in the classroom. However, I'm looking at this budget and I see a lot of the resources that we're utilizing in Google Classroom and in payroll and in labor and in time with our staff members, working with our parents and our children in town to teach them. So if you could kind of give me some idea of how this will either positively or negatively affect the budget, or if the budget is going to kind of sustain. I mean, I know there's going to be things that we're not going to be paying for, but there's going to be things that we are paying for. Can you provide a little bit of clarity on that?
Sure, I'll do my best. It's CAPS, Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, did a survey of 45 different districts and looked at the financial situation in the state, reviewing it, and did a bit of a kind of a little research project on it. And we're cautioning that while there are some things that districts are not clearly paying for. I think fuel would be an example of something like that with transportation, that we really shouldn't make many assumptions at this point in the game about having end of year savings because of the COVID situation, because so many different things are in flux and there have been so many directives to pay. We'll get into that a little bit when we get to the COVID item in the agenda. But the state, whether it's Executive Order 7R or the CARES Act, the CARES Act might give us a little something back. But AFC, I think RA is the COVID Virus Act, which I'll give a little bit more information about when we get to that point. There are things that the district will be paying out for that were not part of the picture prior. So there's a note of caution out there about making any assumptions right now about what we as districts would have at the end of year. So I think while I'm optimistic about the situation, I do take to heart this information that was put out by CAPS about being cautious.
Anything else, Dana? Oh. Dana, are you good? You're good? Okay. I do see Jacob has his hand up, so if we could just touch base on Jacob.
Okay. Yeah, just a general comment about these discussions. I think Dr. Willett hit the nail on the head when he was talking about just trying to be cautious with these numbers because it is kind of a volatile situation. For the public, the Finance and Facilities Committee met last week, and I'm sure Christine will cover more of this, but we're looking into this situation carefully, and we'll hopefully through our meetings be able to kind of figure out a better picture of what our financial situation will look like with regard to the effects from COVID-19.
Okay. Any other board members have anything to say until we go to the nurses contract? Nope. Okay, Dr. Willa, if you can continue on to the nurses contract.
Okay. 1 minute here. Okay, so agenda item H2, the Tolland ranked 18 of 9. If you take a quick look at the, if you can refer to that area. And is everybody seeing the agenda now again?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So if you're able to scroll down in that, and look at H2, Tolland ranked 8 and 9 of 15 districts in Tolland County for nurses' compensation, depending on whether they were LPN or RN respectively, both 8 for the LPN, 9 for RN. So clearly, the negotiated contract and what has been traditionally negotiated in Tolland has given the nurses a fair compensation level, but has also not been excessive in any way. Our nurses are among the most hardworking, and I believe you obviously would know that already. I think everybody in the community really respects and appreciates the nurses, and even more so today. You know, we know that the nurses are on the front lines of everything happening, and it's no different in the schools. The nurses have been on the front lines of this. You know, when we were in our physical buildings, they're still on the front lines now, assisting families, helping people. So they're a vital and integral part of our workforce, and we're thankful to have each and every one of them. The nurses' compensation maximum in fiscal year 20 was $43,920 and $48,565 respectively. Once again, for those training levels, and they are among the most modestly compensated within the district. The nurses will receive the following increases in this bargaining unit agreement. In fiscal year 21, it's 3.9. In fiscal year 22, it's 3. And fiscal year 22, it's 3. And fiscal year 23, it is 3. The nurses coordinator is provided a stipend of $6,000, $6,250, and $6,500 for each year, respectively, of that contract. Longevity is awarded 10 to 14 years at $300, 15 to 19 years at $375, 20 to 29 at $475, and 30 plus years at $600. Insurance is competitive at 16.5, and dental and life insurance at 18 is also competitive. Remembering that the compensation levels for this bargaining unit are among the most modest in the district. A standard MA4 teacher is about 52, 53. And so the nurses being compensated in that zone of 43.9 to 48, even with the increases that they're receiving, would be putting them into a standard zone of, say, your standard MA4 teachers, MA2 to MA4 teachers. Nurses are highly trained individuals, and they obviously are a professional class of job. So that compensation is consummate. Because they are not as highly compensated as some others, the insurance levels are competitive insurance levels for this group. So I don't know if Karen, Ms. Lundgren might want to give the floor to Karen Moran, who is also part of the negotiation team, or if there's any other comments that want to be shared here.
I don't know. Karen, would you like to have anything to add to this?
Sure. I would just say, at the time, when the negotiations committee reviewed this contract and went through the process, everything that Dr. Willett brought to us was very compelling. And I think we all need to be cognizant of, that hopefully at some point we will all be back to business and continuation of our regular services and our employees is really important. So there's a lot of hard work that went into this, and we really appreciate everything that the nurses do every day. It is a lot that they do. So just say that.
Okay, perfect. Did anyone have any questions? Since this is like the first read, does anyone reviewed it and would like to ask anything or raise your little hand up? Okay, I see Jacob's hand is up. So let's go to Jacob.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. So I had a couple questions, either for Karen or Dr. Willett. I guess the number one was, how many nurses do we have that are part of this bargaining unit? And then also I was just wondering, what is that dollar increase for fiscal year 21 with that 3.9% increase? I know it's not a very large unit, but I would like to just know those numbers.
The number of nurses right now is 9, but it's in flux. We do have some part-time and some other nurses that are brought in for students specifically with their IEPs. So, right, I have to take a look at where we are with the IEPs given the current situation. But you're roughly looking at 2 nurses per school office typically, and a nurse supervisor, or rather nurse coordinator. But there are also going to be a few nurses that are add-ons from, not add-ons, they're great people, and we brought them aboard to handle certain IEP needs, and those IEP needs are being reviewed right now. So that's more or less where we're at. In terms of entire fiscal picture on that, I would need to take a look at that, but I can bring that back to you for the next meeting if you want.
Thank you.
Perfect. I see Tony has his hand raised and he is muted, so we just need to unmute Tony and let him talk.
Yep, my apologies. I muted myself a few minutes ago. Just 2 quick questions. One, and I guess this would be more for Karen, with your experience, was there a lot of adjustment between the last one and this contract and the perspective of the leave and time off?
Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Just say Karen.
For leave and time off, I don't recall actually from one contract to the other. Maybe Dr. Willett has that information.
Yeah, and I can give you. I know that they were given more recognized vacation days. They were given fewer recognized holidays. I'm sorry, not vacation days, but they were traditionally given fewer recognized holidays. So I know we added a couple more recognized holidays, and that brought them up to be more competitive with the other bargaining units. They were getting fewer recognized holidays than some of the other bargaining units. But beyond that, in general terms, the nurses bargaining unit is quite modest compared to the other bargaining units.
Okay. Thank you. And second, so this is the first read is the intent. Then this would be on the next meeting agenda for action?
Correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Karen, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, just one last comment. I think we also need to think long term when we do get back to school that they are talking about fall, winter time. The virus could rear its ugly head quite again, and our nurses will be in the schools dealing with that if it happens. So, just for our kids and students that they'll be, for lack of a better word, on the front lines again, dealing with that. So.
Does anyone else have any other comments to go with this, or shall we move on to H3? Any other hand raising going on? I don't see anything. Dr. Will, I think it's safe to say that we can go on to H3, the Tolland Continuity of Learning Program.
All right, so just a fairly succinct update of the Tolland Continuity of Learning Program. Today is the 8th day, or today serves as the 8th day of the Tolland Continuity of Learning Program, started on March 30th. As you may have seen already, a site was set up to act as a gateway of resources for the community. That gateway has a series of different links and options for community members to choose. It also includes information about each individual school's implementation, their absence, and work expectations, and various other aspects of the Tolland Continuity of Learning's overall operation. Right now, the Tolland Continuity of Learning program is mostly asynchronized, meaning that it happens generally through means of Google Classroom and other technologies where the teachers will assign work or send videos. And it becomes a synchronous environment or a synchronous experience when somebody might put a video out there for people to look at that is instructional and have a chat room open, for instance, to be able to interact with the students as they're watching the video to add clarifications. And that's a low bandwidth kind of situation when you're adding a chat room onto a video, even though the video can be somewhat high bandwidth, it's not as high as a video conference. And teachers are also using the blended models of synchronous and asynchronous together as a blended model when they actually use the video conferencing. And a lot of times video conferencing is used with smaller groups, one-to-ones and smaller groups and office hour sessions and things like that. But it has been used for larger groups too. We don't rely only on things like video conferencing because not everyone has a internet connection that would sustain that. So we have to be sure and be careful that we are serving all students. And there, before the crisis, there were about 250 to 300 students that qualified for free and reduced lunch. Now, with the layoffs and other things, we expect that number to rise significantly, perhaps by hundreds. So, if you think about there being, upwards of 300 to 500 families and children, or children rather, those families, not having a lot of resources, they sometimes tend to not be the ones that have the high-end internet connections either. So we can't make assumptions that everybody can handle video conferencing. Whenever a teacher does do video conferencing, they will create a recording of it, and then they post that recording so it can be downloaded with some of the slower connections, so that even if there is a video conference that has some instructional elements, students are able to then download and see what happened and be able to benefit from that as well. So we do try to be very mindful of what every Tolland family's experience is, and provide instruction that is very meaningful, but also mindful of some of the limitations that some of our Tolland families are struggling with right now. Over 800 to 900 Chromebooks have been distributed to the Tolland families. We do about 300 breakfasts and lunches a day now. That's kudos to the food service staff, who are, in my mind, they're angels, and to Abby Cassman Harnett, who is the director of food service, doing unbelievable things. And they're getting out about 150 breakfasts and 150 lunches, so 300 meals total per day at this point. That has scaled up significantly from the beginning of the program. We are also just received this afternoon authorization from the USDA to extend our program now to all children 18 and under in Tolland. So it's not just going to be children that attend the Tolland Public Schools. Before, it was if you had one child who attended, all children in that household could get the lunches. But now it's going to be all of the kids in Tolland that are 18 and under may now receive these as part of the USDA's program at a certain starting basically as soon as we can gear up for that. So we received authorization just this afternoon to expand it to all kids, and that's what we'll be doing. Let's see, the staff is doing an unbelievable job. I mean, I just cannot tell you how hard these individuals are working. And you know what, frankly, in the community, they may need a breather when, step outside during their very short lunch to walk the dog or take a little walk. I totally support that. They're doing an amazing, amazing job. They're working well beyond the 8 to 3 time frame. They're carrying a massive weight, and we're only 8 days in, and they're executing I could not have expected more. They are doing an amazing job. I also would say that parents and guardians who are now in the role of really assisting that process, they're also stepping up to the plate, and they're doing a great job as well. So all of the staff is really pulling together to make it happen, and the entire workforce of the Tolland Public Schools right now is in. They're in and working. Nurses, psychologists, the teachers, the paras, the administrators, all of these units, the custodians, they're all on, all in full force, all working very hard. So you have a great group of people there. And the expectation now is that, personally, I think that you'll see a statement made that we will probably not be coming back on April 20th. I think given the trajectory and the information we're receiving from the government and the Eastern Highland Health District about the numbers and the identifications and the trend, I do not think we will be back in school by April 20th. I expect that there'll be a message within the next few days that extends our school closure period to a significantly longer period of time. It's very difficult to say exactly how long that would be, but if I had to guess, I would say it would be set sometime in May, or they may say that we're just going through to the fall, that we would complete the end of the year in our out of school programs. So we should be getting some kind of message on that in the next few days. I would expect that to be the case, and we'll just see where we go from there. Assessment-wise, we're looking very carefully as a district, looking more at the model of Socratic questioning and following through, and looking to do our assessments in a fair and balanced manner. The Yukon ECE program has certain requirements that we're trying to work through right now, and want to include parents and guardians in that process. AP also. So we're also working through those kinds of assessments that are not necessarily directly controlled by the school system, like the Yukon ECE program, and we're working out how to approach that. The SBAC and the NGSS testing has been canceled by the state of Connecticut for this year, so there will be no SBAC testing, no NGSS testing, and SAT is working to provide online versions that can be executed by the individuals, but we will be looking at how that gets implemented over the next few months. Guidance came out from the state today, making some recommendations about grading practices and graduation and transcripts. That is a very recent development, so we'll be looking at that very carefully in the next few days as well. Some recommendations about pass-fail have been suggested. We're looking at it, and we're coming up with a determination based on research and based on direction from the state. So overall, the program is going incredibly well. If you think we're in the 8th day, that 8 days ago, none of this was happening. And to basically have a week and a half and we're where we are, I think it just speaks to the community, how great of a community this is. And it speaks to what a fantastic staff we have. And the support that we've received. The Board of Ed has been incredibly supportive. You could not ask for a better group of people. And overall, town people, town council, everybody's been working hard. So the EOC working really hard. I attend 2 EOC meetings a day typically. Again, cannot get a harder working group of people. They're an amazing group you've got in this town working for us. So I think that I will end it there. And if there's any questions.
If there are any board members that have any questions, please raise your hand at this time. Okay. Jacob has his hand up. So Jacob, go ahead.
Thank you, Ashley. So first, thank you, Dr. Willett, and so all the staff for all the hard work you put in. And also thanks to the council. There are a couple members on the line for all that they've done as well, and being very informative and quick responding to this unprecedented situation. Anyway, my question though to Dr. Willett is if he could kind of describe a little bit about how how we're handling continuity of learning for the younger grades, particularly like kindergarten and first grade. I know it's kind of an open-ended question, but I think it kind of makes sense how you could do it for high school and middle school, but I'm a little confused as to how it might work for those younger kids that, the nature of the learning is a little bit different.
So essentially, when you're talking continuity of learning, a lot of the youngest age, youngest age instruction is going to be asynchronous, meaning the teachers will be posting assignments and using Classroom, and they're interacting with the kids with the assistance of the parents. I mean, in all frankness, when you're talking kids that are pre-K, K1, we know that the parents parents and guardians are vital in that effort. And again, we can't underestimate what's happening here in the community. People are working from home. We're isolated. Some are quarantined. They have to be working hard to acquire food for their families. They have to be working hard, to make sure that their own jobs can be executed. So that's not lost on us. And I am just seeing such compassion and such hard work on the part of just these families, parents, guardians, and teachers to work together to help these students, these young students, on different projects and different activities. Largely videos will be made. The videos are sent home. Various aspects of work are sent home. We're using a courier system that we are working through now. We're only again in the 8th day, but we're able to send materials home that teachers request. So some of these households receive or will be receiving things like clay, things like some of the resources we have within the buildings that we are redistributing to actually people's homes, dropping them off on their front porches, things like that. And so we are moving forward with an educational model that engages students of all ages. But granted that the kids that are at the youngest age group need the most support. So they're getting a lot of videos, they're getting a lot of activities, they're getting a lot of project-based items, and there's a lot of cooperation happening between the parent guardians and the teachers to make that happen.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Let's go next to Karen.
Yes, Dr. Willett, as far as the high school level and AP testing, I read something from the College Board that said that they were not going to be testing on any content after a certain date because students wouldn't have covered it. So I was just wondering, if you don't know the answer, that's okay. It's something I can ask Ms. Fox, I guess. But and then also, if there's states in the U.S. that are canceling school or not having online learning or something, I don't see how that's happening for those, across the U.S. But it's just something I was thinking about.
When you say that when they're canceling across the U.S., that is not happening, are you speaking which specifically?
Being prepared for AP tests online.
Okay.
If you don't know the answer, that's okay.
Yeah, so I know what I've been working through most recently was some conversations about UConn ECE programs. The AP program, it makes sense to me that they would be testing up through a certain date. I know that that there will be some form of AP testing here. I experience it with my own kids too. But as far as where that's at specifically, yeah, I would have to check in with Ms. Fox and take a look at where they are specifically with AP testing. But it does make sense to me that they would probably make some adjustments with that and offer it online.
They are offering it online, but as far as the content, I think it was like up until March something.
That makes sense. I would imagine that's what's happening.
Anything the teachers are doing after that, I mean, with our high school, obviously block scheduling is a little different. But I mean, for my own child, to be honest, she's not going to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, basically they're allowing people to do it on these online exams, and kids can take it on their smartphone, their tablet, or a computer, and they're trying to make it really easy for them to take the exams. But there are some interesting dynamics around that too. They're taking some steps to try to make sure that there's no cheating involved, and I know that those steps are continuing to evolve because they want to make sure that there isn't any unsavory activity going on too with these AP tests, and they want to have oversight on it. So I would imagine that they'll continue to evolve how they're approaching it. But I do know that they plan on offering it. They plan on offering it on a certain schedule that is available on the AE site. They have a coronavirus site. And that it explains basically the schedule for taking it, explains the modalities that it can be taken on, and it makes sense that they would cut that content a little bit short.
I think that's where I saw it, but I was just wondering if you had any conversations about it. And then my other quick question was, just concern, I guess, about, more K-5 grades and intervention and what they're having to do with those kids. Concern for and super appreciative of the staff. Like I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said, but I'm in awe of what they're doing right now. And having to do multiple videos of things, and they've never done this before, and just the extreme effort that's going on here with things like that. I guess, I don't know, it's not really a question, but I was just a little concerned about keeping up with that.
Well, remembering that we are in the 8th day, but yeah, the intervention, basically they have been using the synchronous technologies where possible to do the video conferencing and to do the small group instruction and to do the one-on-one instruction. We do have paraprofessionals and teachers, interventionists engaged, special educators engaged. Just talking to a parent today who was amazed and so thankful that they were doing those video conferences and meeting one-on-one with the child and, going through the lessons. And, really, I am amazed that in the 8th day, they are doing so much outreach, so much connecting. And, there's always room to grow, and we are in the 8th day and we continue to grow, but they are trained and training on even more and more apps every day, and they're employing that training magnificently. Is everything perfect? It's definitely not perfect, but we're going for progress, not perfection. I don't think a situation like this allows us to have, perfection. So, we're heading in the direction of getting, it done the way we want. You go from, in a situation like this, it starts, with storming. Everybody's in a maelstrom trying to figure it out, to norming. We're getting it done. We're setting the norms, to performing. And right now, we're just coming out of the storming aspect. We're still kind of a little in that. The norms are getting set. People are trained. People are working and using those elements. And soon we will be back into performing. And the kids are performing now. The teachers are performing. The staff is performing. But we'll move into our new normal and be able to continue to evolve that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Let's go down to Tony's next. Mr. Holt?
Yep, Dr. Willett, I was curious from the teachers and the administrative perspective, what kind of feedback you're getting as far as what we could be doing better. From my son's perspective, everything is going wonderfully and we're able to contact the teachers relatively quickly. I just wonder what it looks like from their side.
So I have heard some feedback so far. I have a series of emails to catch up on. So I may not have seen everybody's feedback on this yet, but I do have a feedback link set up on the daily bulletin, and we do have quite a bit of email that has been coming in. From what I have seen, it's been very positive, very appreciative of the teachers' efforts, very appreciative of all the work that's been done, of the site, of the links, of the resources. I think that students, families and parents, some of the families and parents of students that have some special challenges or need some accommodations, they have concerns, which I understand. Statewide, that's a situation, and everyone's working hard to do what they can to make that work and make it the best we can be for everybody based on their needs and their feedback. And we continue and will continue to do that in every aspect of this effort. So I think that there's also people that are very thankful that there's a situation where they're on Monday through Thursday and they're working hard and getting assignments and doing those things. And they're very thankful for the Fridays to get off the screen time and do other things while we train staff and do the administrative pieces we have. There's also people that feel like, they want to work even longer and work even harder and work into, further into the latter part of the year, extend the time for the school year, things like that. But I don't think, I think the majority of people are very happy with the efforts that are being made, that they are interested in ending school on the calendar time that we have, if not earlier. And they, I think they are feeling like after 8 days that a lot has been done. I think right now the feedback that I have seen has been positive. And again, there are always places where we can improve and will continue to improve. And we have received reminders, that not everybody has strong internet connections and some people have to share devices. So whenever we receive any of that kind of feedback, we try to adjust and help in every possible way that we can. And, the staff is very well aware that there are many different families with many different levels of technology and need, and that we're making our instruction match for each of those levels.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Next up is Kate. Oh, now she's muted. She wasn't muted just a minute ago. There she goes. There she is.
So I know you all know, but I am an assistant principal at a school, and at our school we are at one-to-one technology, and so all of our students have Chromebooks, and even given that, it was a pretty heavy lift to transition from a classroom-based model to a distance learning model. So for the fact that our entire district did that in a matter of days, it's really truly extraordinary. I know we've said that, but I just wanted to highlight that again. That's my statement. Then I also wanted to actually ask a couple. Well, I want to say one thing about intervention, and then I have two questions. Intervention, as an intervention parent, woohoo, I am thrilled with the amount of interaction the teachers are giving to my child. They have their own classroom set up on Google Classrooms, and it's just really great. Seeing my daughter smile when she saw her intervention teacher because they had a Google Meetup was just really awesome. All right, so my two questions. First question, I would love to know, kind of now that we're in it, kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Jacob was asking, because I'm a high school person, that's what I know. So let me know a little bit more about our littles, our pre-K to even 3, your beginning readers, your beginning mathematicians. What about our programs and next year, Dr. Willett? How are we feeling about what programs we have in the budget? And, if we end up in a situation like this, what are we not going to have next year?
So let me make sure I understand your question. Do you mean if this out of school closure situation continues, or do you mean if there are budget impacts?
I think that if this out of school situation continues, so thinking about what we have in the budget going into next school year, because it is in the town council's hands, thinking about what we have in the budget for next year, are we going to be adequately equipped if we are going to have to go back, assuming that budget gets passed, right? Are we going to be adequately equipped with various technology programs? So Lexia, IXL, I can't think of anyway, the different platforms that the kids are using actively at home and that the parents are depending on at home to supplement their school situation at home.
Well, I mean, I'm of the opinion that, these tools are very, very valuable. And I think that the board generally felt like that was the case. When we did the budget with the 1.54%, as you know, the 1.54% budget does bring back certain elements that were part of what was originally taken out. So there's been some real benefits to having that, obviously, and in this particular situation, we've benefited greatly by having that. So, things that were brought back by this board for next year were things like the BGP RAS and the Newsella and things like that. So, these programs are invaluable, in my opinion, in general terms, but also in a situation like this. I think if you have the 1.54% budget, then, as I had felt in the past, you're going to have some of these resources sustained, and that's a very good thing. I think to drop below the 154, we'll have some difficulties with it. We don't know where the end of the year is going to be yet. And again, CAPS recommended that we not make assumptions about where the end of the year would be in terms of having funds. So I think right now it's difficult for me to say, but I would make a statement that I continue to support that 1.54% that the Board of Ed voted on and adopted.
Okay, I just have one more tiny little question. This one's a pretty easy one. The Courier System that you mentioned. What? Like, I'm just picturing it like from a systemic kind of organizational perspective. So if I get this right, you are making sure to get materials in the hands of our little friends so that they can do stuff at home as though they were doing it in school. Is that what I heard you say earlier?
Yeah, that's correct. We, we're not able to do it with lightning speed, but for instance, we are getting, there was a cardstock type paper that needed to be distributed so that the engineering robotics could do a roller coaster project at home, and clay that needed to be distributed. There are over 400 books that have been distributed that were part of a reading project. There's another 198 going out. So we've been doing basically we've tasked these individuals full time. They're doing it. They're part of our payroll. It's also, as we are, and the state wants us to keep people employed. And these individuals are 100% employed. So it's John Cronin who's been doing our, security officer stuff is now doing that. And the SRO that we had budgeted for when they're not patrolling the parks to make sure kids are not socially congregating. They are doing the courier service. So we're able to distribute and do all of those things. The other thing that's important is, bargaining unit contracts right now, we specify things about social distancing. The MOUs that brought people back into service have specifications about how many people can be in a place at a certain time that mirrors, things that the president, things that the state have stated, the state has laid out. So somebody might have left a medication or left certain things in the building that we, while we can't have lots of people going in and out of the buildings, we can have a courier go and retrieve a medication or retrieve inhalers or retrieve, certain things that people might have left in their desks that they still need. So the couriers have done work like distributing academic elements, which is most of that work, Chromebooks, technology, returning Chromebooks that broke, that somehow died and need replacing, power supplies, and things like medications and needs. So they're fully utilized, and they've been very, very useful and effective, and allowed us to truly do a continuity of learning program to really make sure that everybody has what they need. They may not get it as fast as they want unless it's like a medication they really need. That would be a high priority. But the certain materials may not come tomorrow, but they are being distributed, and we are executing all kinds of special programs for students because of that.
Okay, that's good. Let's go to Dana next. We have to unmute her though, or she has to unmute herself.
Yeah, many of you, you're unmuting and muting yourselves. I'm just hanging out. If you need my help, I will help you. So Dana, I'm going to unmute you to help. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, this is Dana Philbin, and I apologize. I got kicked off the meeting. So if I'm repeating someone's question, I'm apologizing. First of all, Dr. Willett, if you could clarify something. I thought I heard you say that before this situation, we had about 250, 300 students on reduced lunches. And that's currently, those numbers are going to continue to increase. And right now we're over 300 meals a day. And you said, I want to clarify, you said any child under the age of 18, as long as they're related to a Tolland Public School student, is receiving, is it breakfast and lunch, just lunch?
So, yep, the prior authorization we sought and got was that if there was one child in a household that was a Tolland Public School child, every child in that household, 18 or younger, would be eligible to receive the lunches and then the breakfast and lunches when we expanded it to that. Now we have received authorization from the USDA to expand that to any child 18 or younger in any household in Tolland. So it's not just whether they are a Tolland Public School student or not, it is any child in any household in Tolland. So, again, kudos to our workforce of food service people, Abby, Cass, and Harned. And, they're just doing an amazing job making it happen. And and we also, the numbers for free and reduced lunch class is about 250 to 300 people prior to the issue of COVID. And now, as I said, with so many people losing their jobs because of it or being laid off or furloughed, we expect those numbers to increase significantly, especially if the situation goes a long time.
Right. Well, I just want to make sure that I had those numbers correct because one, that's phenomenal numbers that we're taking care of folks in our community of all financial statuses. I know that the big conversation that we had, a lot of conversations that we had throughout the budget process is to ensure that people can afford to live in Tolland and afford to be here. And I'm glad that Tolland is taking care of those folks in all aspects of financial, whatever aspect of their financial income is. So thank you very much for that. And for the staff that is providing those lunches, that is putting themselves at risk to ensure, the floods of people that are coming in or the people coming in and getting that. But again, making sure that we're helping all people of all incomes, which is phenomenal. So thank you. To circle back to Jacob's question, if you're okay with me responding to some of the younger children's curriculum online, I'd like to do so if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to, so go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So, and I apologize again if I missed some of this while I was off Zoom. My apologies. But Jacob, I will say I have a kindergartner and a first grader. Adapting to the curriculum of the Google Classroom has been an interesting one. We'll put it that way. I will definitely say in comparison, my cousin's son is on one-to-one in their school system. And he went right home when they closed up school, went right home and was able to open up that Chromebook and do 2, 3, 4 hours with minimal parent instruction because he was used to utilizing that equipment. With our youngest, sadly, we don't have that available currently in our budget. However, the school was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Willett, you've handed out over 800 Chromebooks to our students in town?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So, I have a student on an iPad and another one on a Chromebook that my husband quickly purchased immediately when he found out school was being closed. But my first grader is on a Chromebook, and she's been able to adapt. But I will say, utilizing programs such as, sorry? All right, so utilizing programs such as RAS, Lexia, IXL, and Reflex have been paramount to their transition. While we're helping one on the curriculum that's been provided by the first grade and kindergarten teacher, which is they're doing phenomenal, and we're still working through a smooth transition on how to access everything through that day. But while we're setting up the 5-year-old on one thing, then you go to the 7-year-old on the other. Those programs have been very helpful to continue the learning process while the other one's working on the curriculum from the teacher. So again, it could have been a smoother transition if we had a little bit more, if we had one-to-one in our school systems, especially for our littlest children. Again, I'm only speaking from what's going on in my own roof, under my roof. But I will say those teachers have been doing a phenomenal job getting back to my husband and I and the other students' parents and such. And there's constant emails on tutorials. And when something doesn't work, they try something else. And like as Dr. Willett, you did mention, we're only in day 8. So it's kind of, we're testing different things. And as things progress, they're improving. I think we're on that step of improving. However, again, going back to that one-to-one, I think it would have been an easier transition going into a situation such as this. and I don't want to repeat what I said earlier, but I'm going to, is this pandemic can be cyclical. So we need to be cognizant of the resources that are available. And I hope that what I'm saying is serious and is not humorous to some of the folks in this room listening to this, because this is serious. This pandemic is serious. And our resources to our students are serious. K through 5, all the way to middle school and high school, it is serious. And these programs are paramount to the success. And parents are teaching our children with the guidance of our teachers at home. So having these resources available to our teachers is so important. So again, thank you for getting those 800 Chromebooks out plus, and I know you're still giving some of them out. But that's just a little bit of information to Jacob. So I hope that answers some of your question.
No, it did.
Programs that the K and 1 children are using. And I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more of what the grading practices are on the graduation, what that looks like for our older students, especially those that are looking into going into college and next year with different testing and those kind of things that are required for them to go away to the respective college that they so deserve. And that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you, Dana.
Thank you.
The one thing I will add to that is I deal with a lot of the college transcripts, and I actually recently today we started receiving them where their spring semesters are either pass or fail, and they're just using the GPA from all their classes up until that point for graduation. So that is definitely something I'm already seeing in colleges. I know you said something about that for the high school, that it's something might change. I don't know how that would reflect, but it is happening. Let's go to H4 for the COVID-19 impact. I don't know if you want to add. I think you kind of touched base a little bit with that H3, but.
Yep, I did. All right, let me just cue that up. So H4, to cover some bases on COVID, and I know that Ms. Griffin will also be talking a bit about this in the FFC meeting. And I did already make reference to CAPS. CAPS did a research that it sent out today from 47 districts, saying that a preliminary estimate of the potential financial impact, they emphasized that it is preliminary, but, stated that they felt we should be very careful about saying that anything would be saved by it, because there's a lot of things that are still in flux in terms of the money that has to go out. So the 3 big things that we talked about with respect to COVID's impact, and again, this is an ongoing and evolving situation, were most recently, or within the last week or so, Executive Order 7R. Executive 7R basically brought back and essentially stated that a continuity of payment would be set up for public school staff, for transportation services, for special education, went all the way through basically listing all the units, including cafeteria and so on. And so, that was to provide people income and to keep their income going. And the school district has in virtually every bargaining unit utilized and brought back the staff prior to this time to keep things going, and they're doing a magnificent job. There are some units, and the food service is among them, that some individuals will be going for unemployment or furlough, just because it is something that I think some of them want, and they are not. There's just not everybody back to be able to fully utilize them. So while most people are back in service, some are not. So 7R is not that different from what we were already doing. The Families First Coronavirus Response Act, or FFCRA, went into effect April 1st. And this provided for families in certain conditions to have compensation or to have assistance. And so there's some details that, I can go into in greater form for you as a board and FFC if you want. But essentially, it falls into 3 classes of individual. There's 100% of a certain payment type for qualifying reasons 1 through 3. So people that qualify in sections 1 through 3, for instance, if they are under isolation for COVID, if they've been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, or if they're experiencing symptoms, They're allowed to be paid up to $511 daily and up to $5,110 total. So if they're in any of those 1 through 3 conditions, they're eligible for that by asking for it. 2/3 for qualifying reasons, what's considered 4 and 6. So if they're caring for an individual who's subject to an order described in section 1 as a self-quarantine, or if they are also in a situation where they're experiencing what's called substantially similar condition, or a substantially similar condition to COVID, they are eligible for $200 daily and $2,000 total. And if they are in a situation where they are caring for a child, or a place of care is closed, they are able to request and get $200 daily and up to $12,000 total. So that's essentially what the Families First Coronavirus Response Act provides, and that obviously will have some financial impacts as people feel the need to engage in those situations. So we'll be working to attempt to figure out how that's going to impact us. And obviously people are taking, and some people are taking sick days, and that's good. That's a good thing. So right now Cigna has recently put out that they have suspended deductibles and things like that for COVID. So if somebody feels like they're sick for COVID, then they won't be paying. And they're doing that to make sure that people have no barriers to getting tested, to getting medical help, and in an effort to make sure it does not spread. So there's some considerations to look at there. Finally, the CARES Act provides $13.5 billion in planning for long-term school closures and purchasing of technology and online resources, another $3 billion for governors to address primary and secondary schools and college education needs. I think it's in Congress, the Senate Bill 3548, I think. But the bottom line is, a lot of these, I think, are priority districts. They're going to get the priority, which understandably they would. So I don't know what we're going to see there. We aren't making any plans to do any massive expenditures other than those necessary just to keep continuity of learning going. For instance, we don't have a plan to purchase a whole bunch of technology, but we'll see how CARES Act plays out. And if there are some benefits that Tolland can avail themselves of, then we will be trying to do that too. But right now, I think most of the districts that will receive such things are priority districts and so on. So those are the 3 big impacts right now: Executive Order 7R, FFCRA, and CARES. But we are also doing things like working out the transportation situation, payroll there, and and other things that we expect to continue to impact us as the state continues to lay down what its expectations are. So maybe I'll just stop there and see if anybody has any questions.
Okay, Karen has her hand raised.
Yeah, no, I was just going to comment that I did jump on a webinar today through CCM, and they had several lawyers and others going through a lot of the executive orders. And I was just going to comment that as far as the CARES Act, there's a lot of broad language on distributing and use of funds. So I think a lot of what they were saying was going to be to be determined. And part of that is the Education Stabilization Fund, which I think Dr. Willett was referring to, which is emergency funds for the Board of Educations. And that they were recommending that you, if you need it, take advantage of the funds as soon as possible, I guess. But I'm sure they will be earmarked for very needy districts, I guess. But I did try to, it was like 2 hours of the webinar, so there was a lot of information. So
we are in the process of, for the emergency status this town is in, we're tracking all expenses. Part of my salary I mean, I don't know if that would actually happen or not, but we could try and are logging things like my time, because even though I am salaried, there is a lot of time going into the COVID response, and I'm part of the EOC as a deputy. So right now, there may be things that we'll be able to claim, but it's really unclear exactly what will be reimbursable and what will not. So we're keeping track of everything, which does add an additional workload right now amongst everything else, trying to track everything. But we are, starting around March 12th or 13th through today and beyond. So we'll continue to do that and see what we can get in terms of the emergency relief.
Okay. Any other board members have any comments? Okay. Let's go to discussion for the April break, H5.
Okay, so let me just cue that up real quick. Wait 1 sec, I'm sorry. Okay, so April break, if you're taking a look at H5, the proposal that I put out there for the board to consider is that Friday, April 10th, obviously is Good Friday, but not for everyone, depending on your religious situation. There would be a basically 4-day weekend. Friday, April 10th would be no school. Monday, April 13th would be no school, and would provide a long weekend for families and staff. The April 14, 15, and 16 would be recovered as in-session school days due to the number of days that we have lost. This would provide certain instructional time and structure for children and families. And the children, as you know, on Fridays, it's a catch-up day for them, and the staff works on PD and also working on development. So the staff would be in 14, 15, 16, 17. The students would be engaged 14, 15, 16, giving them a short week with the Monday and the Friday. And this is generally put in place for, I would say, at least 3 reasons. One is that there is going to be, and what we are seeing in all the reports, a significant spike in the identifications and in the spread of COVID-19 in the next few weeks, and that this spread would coincide with some of these vacations. As many of you probably know, New York State, in the terribly hard situation that they're dealing with, they have canceled all April breaks. I'm not sure, how that plays in certain other places. In Connecticut, if they would consider doing that statewide, I don't know. I know that there has been other districts that have canceled their April breaks. Other districts have kept them intact. This was a compromise so that the 4-day weekend would give people a little bit of a breather, but would also engage people, because right now across the state, there are things that people are experiencing that would suggest that it's good to have people with, and children in particular, with structure and things that they are engaged in. Just to give you the reminder that the parks are closed, the basketball courts are closed, the tennis courts are closed. They are not allowed to congregate. There's literally nowhere for them to really go beyond their yard and the walls of their house. So a 4-day weekend might be enough to connect with family and get a break, but then come back and have some structure, with the faces from the outside world coming back into their living rooms and their homes. Those interactions, social interactions, may be very important for young adults' mental health and would help us to not continue the spread of COVID, because it'll be very hard to keep people in social isolation if you have a break that extends from the end of a day on a Friday all the way to the end of that following Sunday. It may be hard for people mental health wise and otherwise. So it gives them a community connection for their physical and mental health, gives them a break, but also gives them on time, similar for the family. So it was looked at as a compromise between those who really wanted to have the entire break be a school week and those who felt like the entire break should be held intact as a break. It covers the instructional time, some of it that was lost at least, and it would probably be a good argument then for us to end the school year where we said we would end it, somewhere around June 18th. Because if we're making up some days, we can make the argument that having recovered some of those days, the instruction, is intact, and that we would safely be able to get to the end of the year with enough days to really give the kids what they need to the greatest extent that we possibly can under the circumstances. So at that, I leave it to the board to discuss and consider. Happy to answer any questions that you have that
Christina. Oh, I think you need to unmute her.
Okay, Christina, you should be unmuted.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I couldn't agree more with the kids needing structure. I have a child that's 4.5. He's not in kindergarten yet, and his daycare is closed. And it's tough giving him structure while working full time. And I can completely understand what parents are going through and teachers are going through. And I think that this is a great compromise by keeping some structure for the kids, like you said, but also giving a little bit of a break for the parents that need it. So I'm on board with this. The only question I have is, if we were to vote to keep the break, when would the last day of school be?
Because the state has lifted the 180-day requirement, the end of school can largely be where we would like the end of school to fall. I think that really what that comes down to is, how many days at this point do we feel like we need under these circumstances to prepare the kids for the next academic year? So I think there's a strong argument to be made that, we really should try to give the kids as many instructional days, both for mental health and physical health, to keep them occupied, but also because we want to gain as much educational ground as possible. I don't think that it's in anyone's best interest to go to June 30th, for instance. I think that's too much, and I think people would not react well to that. I think it's a hardship. But I think landing where we plan to end the year, somewhere around June 18th, June 19th, that makes sense under the circumstances. And again, that to me is a good compromise between those who, might want to see it end earlier and those who would want to see it go through June 30th.
Thank you.
And Jacob has his hand next. Jacob?
Okay, thank you, Ashley. I also support this compromise. I think that although we've gotten plenty of emails up on this subject from both sides of the argument, those in favor of break and those who aren't. And I get where the people who want the full break are coming from. However, I think in the end, though, our ultimate purpose is to educate the students. And with all the time that we've lost so far, I don't think that we would be doing our students right by getting rid of the break. I think that by getting rid of the break and putting in place a 4-day weekend, we're doing the best we can for them. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Karen?
Yes, thanks. You guys can hear me, yes? Okay. I think we need to just reflect for a minute on the fact that we are making this decision in the 11th hour and not giving our educators or families the proper time to plan. I've heard some things, from educators, working to 7 to 5 daily and not catching up, getting up to work in the middle of the night, unable to be available to help their own children, videoing multiple lessons a day, working on documents for the computer, trying to correct work and return it to students to be fixed. Staff working weekends and they're exhausted. So my concern for the staff and this decision, because up until now, as I understand it, teachers were under the impression our break was staying intact. They will not find out officially because they're waiting for us until tonight or tomorrow. So with Friday off, when are they supposed to get their planning done, videoing, and everything else ready for next week? It will be this weekend and Monday. And now the parade's Saturday. So that's not a day off for them. And I know that they do it out of the kindness of their hearts. Teachers will have to work this long weekend, otherwise nothing will be ready. Making them plan based on our last minute decision, I think is unreasonable. And no, this is no offense to Dr. Willett's recommendation, but this Monday off is not really a compromise in my opinion. I'd really like to know why we didn't have a special meeting to make this decision sooner. And again, I know this is Dr. Willett's recommendation, but this has no reflection on that. But I believe maybe our chair should answer that question. Making a last minute decision like this, I don't think is fair for anyone. Our teachers do want a strong structure in place because they really do care about the students. But that structure will not be as strong as it could be if we burn out our teachers by mid-May.
Okay.
I don't think we're giving them the chance to shore up that structure right now. So, and I think as far as parents needing structure and their kids to stay on task, I think that our teachers would give them plenty of resources to keep them busy for the week. So I would suggest as an alternative, either keeping April break as is, or adding Tuesday to the long weekend. And we should also consider 1 or 2 additional days in May for them. I think the kids will be fine. This is not about kids catching up. This is about giving our staff a chance to take a breath and come up for air, reassess what's working for them and not working for them, their students, families, and their colleagues. So I put that suggestion out for the board's consideration.
Okay, well, I will first answer your question there. Dr. Willett did not bring this up until our Thursday leadership meeting, that this was the plan that he would like to go with of having Friday and Monday off. And he said that we can deal with it at this meeting. So I feel as though that's what we're doing right now and it's an appropriate time.
I mean, I can comment that.
No, it's last minute.
Yeah. So here's generally what we're trying to do, or what I've tried to do. Remembering that we're in the 8th day of the continuity of learning program, remembering that, and it really wasn't until 2 weeks or maybe at the most 3 weeks ago that we were forced into dealing with this. My hope was that, that we would be able to, have, the April break, especially when we didn't know when we would be coming back. That has been a moving target. And, coming back, for instance, April 20th, it's become increasingly clear, even though I wish we had clarity on that now. It's increasingly clear that we will not be coming back April 20th. To try to just put it in context, we've been reacting to the information that, we've been receiving. I've been reacting to the information that I've been receiving and trying to make the very best decision with that information for for all of the constituencies that have needed it. Now knowing that we probably in the next few days will get information that we will be out far longer than we had anticipated, knowing that larcenies are going up, that domestic abuse is going up, that family strife and feelings of hardship are going up, that hundreds more people will be added to the free and reduced lunch lists, that many people are losing their jobs, that the community is struggling, that the parks are closed, that the kids have nowhere to go. I think it was incumbent upon me to come up with something, especially with the cascading number of opinions about this, staff opinions, board opinions, public opinions. I did my very best under a situation of a lot of changing information to make the best possible recommendation I could make on the timeline that I could make it. And even Zoom, what we're using right now, we have more people attending this meeting than any other public meeting has had. And I think we've managed it incredibly well. We have over 42 participants and it continues to grow. So, within a 2 or 3 week period, moving the capacity in to handle this, creating the gateway sites and staff sites and the structure to support the professional development, I would venture to say that our teachers are among the hardest working I've ever seen. Our staff is among the hardest working I've ever seen. I would also venture to say that we supported them. I think we supported them. I think they had a ramp up period that some other districts did not have. I think that the teachers had PD and training, that many of them were already highly proficient, but that the admin and other groups worked extremely hard. Julie Kirk, I'm sure many others, to provide lots of re-up training. So, not every district is the same. And, some of them are keeping the full thing and some of them are not. My main priority is the mental health and welfare of our families and children. And that's why I suggested what I did. And I did it based on the information that evolved and I reacted to it. It would be a lot easier for me to just ignore the information that was evolving, take the easy way out and have no opinion on this, but I didn't. And, for those that will dislike it, I'm just doing the very best job that I can.
So this is not a criticism towards you, Dr. Willett, whatsoever. I am just concerned because we may be out of school longer, that we're going to burn out our staff sooner. And we're not giving them a chance to come up for air to really fix things the way they would want. And I know that they are pulling Herculean efforts right now. But they're not going to be ready for next week. They're going to have to work this weekend to get ready. And I think that everyone needs to be cognizant of that. I know you are cognizant of that, but I'm very concerned. And I think, the 2 weeks leading up to this, everyone was doing 24/7, getting ready to hand out Chromebooks and get ready for lunches and everything. So I think more of a compromise would be giving Tuesday, in my mind, and adding a day in May.
Okay. Christina would be next.
Oh, I was going to make the motion to move this to action, but if other people want to talk about it, then.
Yeah, we're going to keep going then.
Okay. Right.
Down on the list next.
I just raised my hand to get back up there.
Kate, if we could unmute Kate, Dr. Willett.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have some concerns. Kind of coming into this meeting, I knew what the proposal was, and I was feeling okay about it, iffy about it, the Monday and the Friday, but okay about it. Knowing that Saturday has been inserted in there kind of makes me a little bit more hesitant about it, because I know that our teachers are going to want to see our kids. And so that just kind of adds more time dedicated to their craft. So that makes me a little nervous about it. I'm just putting that out there. I was curious to know, I actually have a couple of questions. On Fridays, during these continuity of learning weeks, on Fridays, is it expected that the teachers are attending professional development? Or do they have the day to plan? Like what's the teacher schedule and what's the staff schedule look like on Fridays during this mode?
Well, it's all the above, but on April 17th, I canceled all staff meetings. So we have virtual staff meetings, but for the Friday that would be part of this week, I canceled all staff meetings. So the teachers would have most of that day. They might have small meetings here and there to organize themselves and do some other things, but that the great majority of that day would be for teachers to to help get where they need to go. And keeping in mind that as a district, we did do Fridays. I mean, we have instructional days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays were left as an administrative day. And like I said, to give the kids a break from the screen time, to get them outside, to get them feeling better. But that for staff, that was a day to do some of the staff meetings, do some of the other meetings, but also give them time because they do want the PD, they want the development, and to plan to work on some things that they need. And not every district has that. So we are trying to be very responsive to being realistic about the approach for our most precious commodity resource. One of the greatest things about this district is the people and the materials and the things that we've been granted by this community. So our most precious resources are people, and we are trying to protect and help them too.
Okay, just two more little quick questions here. If we decide to do the Friday, Monday, would there be some kind of way for us to make sure that, so basically, are we going to make sure to continue to pass, get the lunches and breakfasts to kids, even if we don't have school in session?
Well, when we have a school break day, we try to provide our own people the benefit of that day to recharge. And all of our people need that. And again, I think it's a balancing act. We try to provide the community everything that we can, but I would say that if we're going to have the day off, we should give it to all of our hardworking people. And maybe that Friday is a holiday that everybody would probably be engaging in. Monday, I'd be working to see where we'd be with that.
Okay. One more thing, and then I have a suggestion. Were you able to survey staff at all to see what they wanted to do? I know you're nonstop, so this is sort of a ridiculous question and a crazy ask, but I was just curious if you had been able to ask staff to see where they were at.
Yeah, the situation evolved quickly, and I did talk with TEA about that. But essentially, teachers, to be very frank, this was delivered as a plan that would be presented to the board, to the TEA, and to the teachers. I had heard from quite a few different people, various stakeholders from all aspects of our community, our workforce, and others. And like I said, I tried to come up with the best plan that I could that reacted to the data that we were seeing from EHHD, also the data about demographically what was happening across the state and to our families, and tried to come up with something that gave people 4 full days of a period to come down and rest, and also give our children and our families structure during one of the most dangerous and escalating times of this virus's spread. It was taking input from all of the different stakeholders and pressure points, taking the data about the COVID virus and what's happening, and looking at even the demographic data about what's happening, with things like family tension and finances and, family struggles, and trying to come up with the best way forward for that week.
And then the last thing that I'm gonna just ask is to I hadn't heard the idea to add on the Tuesday and/or add on a few days in May. I think that would be really wise, especially if this is protracted to the end of the year. I think it would be really wise for everybody to just have some additional time off. So I think that adding the Tuesday, even just next week, would be beneficial. So I'm just putting that out there. Thank you.
Well, just keeping in mind that we have not yet heard from Governor Lamont about the extension of this closure. So it could be that he'd extend it to or the recommendation to mid-May, in which case we would physically be back, but we just don't know.
You're all set, Kate? Just make sure. Okay. Let's go to Christine.
You did.
Oh, there you go.
Just for the record, I'm not muting you.
I know.
People
I
are
lost my
muting
whole connection, so
themselves.
I guess I muted myself. Sorry. I won't take up too much time because a lot of my questions have already been answered. I'm a little late raising my hand these days. So Walt, I did just want to say that I know that deciding about April break was really an impossible decision for you. You were not going to make everybody happy. But I like the Friday, Monday compromise. And the main reason is honestly, our kids pretty much have off every Friday. And if we end up going till the end of the school year and we keep every Friday off, I think it's important for, their routine to have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to be in school next week. So I just wanted to say that I do support your compromise on that. I think it's a good one. And just one other thing I want to say is we did get an email from a psychologist, which was one that definitely stood out to me. And this person specifically said that it's imperative that our children remain in routines and interaction with each other online for their own mental health. And I think it's important to talk about also, like you said, Walt, that there's no going outside. There's no playing with your friends during this week off. And I know I have 2 teenagers, and it's easier for me to keep them inside if I know they have the routine of their distance learning. So that's all I wanted to say. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Let's go to Tony.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly, and I know we've got, Dr. Willett's recommendation on the table, that I support what he said in that first bullet in his considerations. I've got an older child, mine's a sophomore in high school. And while the supplemental learning was good and we were able to put him on task to get those things done, there's been nothing quite like having that interaction with the teachers and those meetings where he can see his classmates. And I think 8 days in, at this point, 10 or 11 days by the time we go to the break, stopping that for a week, I think has more harm than good. So it's just my take on it.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Jacob.
Thank you, Ashley. Just a quick question before I start. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken that still has their hand up in our... I can wait after them, but I just wanted to say I believe we're past the second hour into our meeting and we still have several action items that we need to consider. So I would ask the chair to entertain a motion to move this to action.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to move it to K4.
So moved. Jacob, so moves it.
I can't do the actual motion though. So I need someone.
You can make the motion to move it.
Okay. I move to move item H5 to action.
Yep.
Board action 4.
Board action 4.
Yeah.
Second, Chris Plord.
Any discussion? Okay, Dana?
Yes, I just had a quick comment.
Hold on. I just called on Dana, but she is, she has her.
Dana, let me help you. Once again, I am not hearing people. They are.
Okay, Dana, I think you're free now.
Thank you. This is Dana Philbin. Actually, I did want to comment before we move this to action. So I didn't know that you were going to request to move it to action, Jacob. Otherwise, I would have said I hadn't had a chance to speak.
Okay.
But I have a few comments myself on this. So before I don't know if we want to delay the request to move to action while everybody has the remainder of comments. And I'd like to make a motion that we have to go past 10. So at this point, if that's something you want to entertain.
I think you have a motion on the table that's in discussion. I think you probably have to resolve that first and then.
Okay.
But you can,
My request is to comment on this current topic. So however that's handled.
You're in discussion, Dana, so you are in discussion about it.
Excellent. All right. So you mentioned no matter which way you go with the 4 days or the full spring vacation, our goal is to be out around June 18th-ish. I know that the goal should be giving our children as much instructional time as possible. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more that it's been a little bit chaotic for all of our kids and our teachers and our staff to get aligned on all grade levels. I think no matter what decision, I think Christine had mentioned this, no matter what decision's made, we're not going to please everybody. I definitely did read all of the correspondence that people sent in, and I understand both sides of the coin. I see, the kids, there was the supplemental learning for those 2 weeks. So although, everybody was kind of in an upheaval, that and supplemental instructional learning could have and should have been utilized during those 2 weeks to minimize loss of educational time. Although it wasn't continual forward progressing education, it was still reiterating and reinstilling facts and knowledge and stuff. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Information that they had absorbed throughout the school year. I do know, I have a girlfriend of mine who's a teacher in a neighboring school district. They are taking the spring break. As Karen had mentioned, some of our teachers are working 24/7 during the day, the evening, getting up at 2 a.m., doing plans. She's a teacher, has 2 young ones at home. So she's working with her kids during the day and setting up plans for her classroom as well. And into the evening, responding to emails, responding to parents' requests. I think it's important for people's mental health, as I talked about before, and people's health overall, that sometimes you do need to take a break and you do need to regroup. I think if as a parent myself, I think it is important to continue the education for my children. There are a plethora of resources, the supplemental learning resources from those original 2 weeks that we received that could be utilized, as well as other online programs that the school has, that the kids have available that I've mentioned prior. There's also a ton of online programs that my children's teachers and the teachers at least the school in Birch Grove, they've sent us that they're giving to students at no charge at this point in time, temporarily for the month of May, April, May, and June because of this. A lot of online resources. To answer the question about Friday, although it is a teacher, it's meetings day and such, it's day that children can catch up on their work through the week. It's days that children can catch up on their specials as younger students. I know some of the high school students that I've been in touch with are working, 10 plus hours a day just to, prep for, their college prep. So having that alone in itself, I think it is paramount that we take a break and afford our folks, our students, our staff, our faculty, that spring break to get and regroup and move forward. And as a parent myself, if I want to continue education during that week, then I can utilize resources that are available from the Tolland Public School System. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dana. I kind of lost track because I don't know if these hands are not going down, so I'm not sure if someone else has something to say, but if you do not, please lower your hand.
I still had one more thing.
Okay, Karen?
I was just going to also comment about Fridays because, my children are working on assignments on Fridays, not necessarily all day, but they are working sometimes on Fridays. So I wouldn't necessarily call that just a day off for all students. And it is also a day that teachers are helping children who need to catch up or didn't understand something or things like that. So there's still interaction with teachers and students that day too. So, and as far as supplemental learning. There's, like Dana said, a lot of resources that teachers can use with children for the days that technically school's not in session. So if parents still require their children to have some structure, which I totally understand, that's available for them through their teachers.
Thank you, Karen. Kate?
I actually forgot what I was going to say. No, I'm sorry. Okay, I remembered. So are we just not going to consider an alternate to the proposal at this point? Are we just going to vote on this one proposal? That was my question.
You can vote it down, but you are in the position of discussion and will ultimately have to vote on moving this to action or not.
Okay.
I did have a quick question though. In terms of the idea of having an extra couple of days maybe in May, how would that take place?
Well, especially now. In a normal year, this would be something we would never want to mess with because the school calendar is the school calendar. 180 days, snow days, we may then need to make adjustments. But normally we would not, add a holiday somewhere or add days off somewhere per se. But you do not have a 180-day requirement from the state now. I think there is an expectation that we use as many instructional days as morally, ethically, professionally that we can. But they waived the 180-day requirement. So technically, you could instruct me or vote to take a day or a few days off in May. You probably wouldn't want to do that until a future meeting, only because you do not know what Governor Lamont will be saying in the next few days. I suspect strongly that he will extend the outage, but I do not know exactly to when. So, you could add a day or do something there, and it could end up being, a day that we were back in school. I don't know. So it's hard to say.
Okay, so all those in favor of moving, where are we, H5 to board action for K4, since we had the motion and the second, so I will go through the names on here and get the roll call. Dana, you're gonna have to unmute yourself, or Dr. Willett will have to unmute you. And
I will help, hold on. Dana, your hand, if you put your hand up, you rise to the top and I can find you faster. Okay, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Bye.
Tony.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
We're gonna have to unmute Rini, so unmute her and I will go to Karen.
Karen, aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
And Rini.
Aye.
Okay, so all those in favor, motion passes. So we will have that as board action for K4. Next will be the committee and liaison reports. As far as I know, we have the FFC for Griffin. If you want to do a report.
Okay, I will make this quick. We talked a lot about Governor Lamont's most recent executive order, which was now a week old, but included that, the education cost sharing funding and the payment of the school staff salaries still. And then the bus company, and I think Dr. Willett mentioned earlier in this meeting that, he still had some info to find out as far as about fuel and maintenance and that kind of stuff, if we would still be required. We talked about the food service, which we talked about tonight, spring sports, Chromebooks, that there were enough to give out to every family who requested one. So nobody should have been without one, as we had enough for everyone. We talked about the CARES Act, the FFCRA, which Dr. Willett also talked about a little bit tonight. And then we talked about the potential that we might have end of the year funds. We don't know exactly how this is all going to go, but and we talked about the options that we would have to do with those funds, which includes the education reserve fund and allocate some of it to priority expenditures. But we still, until we find out exactly how the rest of this year is going to play out, we won't be able to make any decisions for a little while. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to extend our meeting past 10.
Christina Plord, I'll make a motion to move the meeting past 10.
Jacob Mari, I'll second that.
Any discussion? Dana? How would you vote? All those in favor? I can't really say that, so we're going to go roll call vote. Dana, are you in favor?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Kate?
Yes.
And Christine?
Aye.
Okay, all those are in favor. We'll be moving our meeting past 10. Okay. On the next liaison report, Dana, do you want to speak about the Birch Grove?
Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted. You're free.
That's awesome. We had our first meeting last week, the week before. Basically, we're pretty much on progress. We're still doing the footings and the foundation, but we did talk a lot about the safety protocols that are being utilized while on site, and ensuring that the team that is there is usually using the proper PPE and having running water is a goal for them to have on the site so they can wash thoroughly as needed. But with everything that's going on, I know one of the big concerns and the questions that I had at one of our meetings was, how is this going to affect the progress of Birch Grove? And luckily it has not. They're still forward moving and right on timeline. So that's a good thing. And that's really what I have.
Okay. Karen, did you want to speak about the census going on and any communication? Here she is.
Tolland actually is in, I believe, still first place as far as the highest percentage of responses in the state. And so we're still trying to utilize the town website and social media and emails to make sure people are filling out their census. I believe our response rate was close to 70%. It could be more than that right now. I'm not sure. I didn't check today. So Tolland's doing awesome. And because of everything that happened with the pandemic, we weren't really able to do a lot of the outreach that we planned to do. But so for Tolland to have that great response rate is awesome. So there should be, I think, a questionnaire coming in the mail next to people who have not responded. But you can still go online and do your responses if people want to do that, and over the phone as well.
Okay, perfect. Did you have anything in terms of the communication? Did you want to speak about anything like that, or are you good?
We canceled communications because really the only communication right now is about continuity of learning and COVID-19. So I felt that, after talking to Dr. Willett, that he's pretty much communicating every day about that stuff. So there was really nothing for us to cover right now because he's doing it. And okay. I needed him to spend his time on that.
I wasn't sure if it was you or Tony who were going to speak to the town council, so I wasn't sure.
Tony, do you want to talk about it? Or, technically, I listened to the meeting, but technically you were supposed to be traveling for April, so.
Yeah, that's my apologies. I did not tune into that one.
Okay. And it seems a while ago, so there was nothing major. I don't think that happened as far as Board of Ed things. They had a couple public hearings, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we could just move on. Next item is, I didn't miss anybody, correct? Please raise your hand if you had something for.
Maybe an update for the curriculum committee. Just an update for everybody. It's coming. So hopefully we're looking, when Ashley and I spoke about this last, we were looking to think about that for May. So just so that folks know that it's coming, and, you know, looking forward to that work, and especially with like the digital spin on it, it's going to be really interesting to get into that with you all.
Perfect. Okay. I was just going to have my chair report, and I'd like to start off just by saying that we have an amazing town. It's been wonderful to see staff, students, and parents stepping up and doing their part in this situation. The circumstances are far from ideal, yet together we will succeed. I understand the transition pains of going from an in-person school day to a virtual school day. I've had the extremes in my household. One kiddo was not signed up for the correct classes, and my other child is just learning how to use the Google Classroom. And now, at this point, she's able to interact with her classroom friends. She's watching videos of her teacher reading books. She's actually really enjoying the Google Classroom experience. At this point, I mean, so much has happened in such a short time frame. As Dr. Willett had said, this will be our new normal for the time being. I do think that there's a routine forming, and I think that we can all kind of appreciate that at a time that we don't have routine set in stone and everything has stopped. You know, there are uncertain times, but I believe that we can adapt and overcome these obstacles. And I just really want to make sure that everyone stays you know, just safe and healthy through this all. That's really all that I had to say. So we will move on to board action. The first one will be the K1, C5040 for the transportation for the second reading.
Just as a reminder that in particular 5040, the changes made here and talked about at the last meeting, they reflect the recommended updates from our legal advisor for state and federal requirements. So it's essentially bringing policy 5040 up to speed with the most recent legal advisements.
Okay. Tony, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Dr. Willett hit the high point here. And like we talked about, you know, at the beginning of this term, that one of the priorities we're really pushing to is to make sure that our policies are brought up to speed from a legal and a state perspective. And so these two here are an example of that push.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to, I guess, what would it be? Just accepting the corrections on the transportation, the policy 5040?
Yep, there is a suggested motion at the bottom of now K1. Motion to approve the changes to policy 5040 is documented in the Board of Education meeting dated today, like 4/8/2020. So if anybody wanted to make that.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right.
Discussion?
You should be stating your names. Jacob Mari did, but is that Kate? Okay.
Great.
Any discussion? Rini, Christina, do you have your rate just because?
I'll lower your hand if you want. Christina, I can lower your hand.
I was raising my hand to make the motion, and there's a lot of echoing. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So you're in discussion, and at this point, if there is none, you could move to a vote, Madam Chair, if you wanted to.
Okay, so we will do the roll call. Dana?
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Rini,
Aye.
Karen, we're going to have to unmute you. So I'm going to go to Kate,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
and we still need to unmute Karen.
Yep. Karen, you should be good.
Sorry. Okay, yes, I for Karen.
And I will be an aye as well. Therefore, the motion passes with the corrections to the policy 5040. Okay,
So moving to K2.
correct.
So in K2, if you recall from our last meeting, we were talking about the updating of excuse me, the updating of the graduation requirements. It's a policy 6011 for instruction. From time to time, we need to update these so that they're in compliance with the state. Just discussed before, it goes back to 1985, Horton versus Meskill, when they started to require these and require boards of ed to do this. Within this item K2 are the legal considerations, the new graduation requirements, the reasoning for why, and the desired board action. Last time we had the first reading, and as the move to action has been made, this second reading would be to ultimately, hopefully, this would be the time where you would be willing to move this to action. I'm sorry, to take action on it and motion to approve the changes to policy 6011 as documented in the Board of Education meeting dated April 8th.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to approve the graduation requirements for policy 6011.
Christina Plord, I'll make a motion to approve the changes to policy 6011 as documented in the Board of Education meeting dated 4/8/2020.
Jacob Mari, I will second that motion.
Okay, discussion. Anyone want to raise their hand with any questions? Okay, we will go to the roll call. So Dana,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jacob,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Rini.
Aye.
We're going to have to unmute Karen again. So let's go to Kate,
Aye.
Christine.
Aye.
I'll be an aye as well. We just need Karen unmuted.
Karen, you should, hold on. Yep. she
Okay.
should be good.
I for Karen.
Okay, so all those are in favor and the motion passes for the corrections to the graduation requirements. We will go to K3 for the school calendar.
So as you recall also, this is up for action as it was reviewed in the past meeting. This calendar for 2021 has more instructional days, directly increasing instruction from 181 to 182. Addition of parent-teacher conferencing for grades 6 through 12 for evening parent-teacher conferencing. Full day off November 25th to provide families needed travel time for that holiday. It adheres to the EastCon calendar, as is the practice for schools in our region. Fulfills contractual obligations, provides enough days to mitigate the potential impact of cancellations, provides faculty in-service day in February aligned with non-school days in the week so as to provide families a larger block of time in February. Has a reasonable number of early release and full professional in-service days, and early release days that are more likely to retain student populations and continuity of learning as they are placed in the middle of the week. There are no financial impacts to it beyond what would typically be the impact of our school year. And, unless we were to do something like put people back on a contractual holiday, in which case you'd have to pay people for that. But otherwise, it should be about where we would expect it to be.
Okay, perfect. So I will entertain a motion to approve the Tolland Public Schools calendar for 2020 through 2021. Oh, Karen.
Oh, sorry. Are we doing discussion? I'm sorry.
Oh, I figure since it's already in board action, we can do the motion
Discussion.
and then get the discussion.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I'll entertain that motion if someone would like to make that.
Jacob
Christina Plord,
Mari. Or
I'll make a
let you go.
motion to accept the Tolland Public School 2020 to 2021 calendar.
And that's Christina Plord. I just need a
Jacob.
second.
Jacob Mari, I'll second that.
Okay, now let's have the discussion. Karen, you have your hand raised.
Dr. Will, I just had a quick question. Something I noticed in January for Martin Luther King Day, that week, obviously the mid-semester day is for the high school, but there's also an in-service day for K through 8. That same day, I know the mid-semester day can change based on snow. Does that change together, or how does that work? There's a lot going on that week.
Yeah, we would have to deal with that based on if the snow changed it, we would have to work out what we were going to do. But the high school gets a mid-semester day while the K-8 gets that PD day. Mid-semester day is often used by high school staff to prep and get ready for the coming semester, and that's why it's there.
Right, but I just asked because Martin Luther King Day and that in the same week seemed like a lot.
Or so.
But I know semester day, you can't really change that.
Right. And we can't really change either of those two things, really.
Okay, right. It just so happens it kind of fell in the same week.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Now's your time to speak. Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call on the approval of the calendar for 2020 through 2021. Dana?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Christina?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor, including myself. Motion passes. The Tolland calendar has been approved for the 2020-21 school year. Also for the April break. I will entertain a motion to approve Dr. Willett's recommendation for having Friday and Monday off.
Jacob Mari, I move to approve the adjustments of the 2019-2020 school calendar as specified in agenda item H4 of the April 8th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education.
Tony Holt, second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment to that proposal to include an empty day, the Tuesday. So I'd like to move to propose that amendment.
Dr. Willett?
I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think you have to vote on the one that's on the, I think you have to vote on what you've got, but
I think you need a second for the amendment.
I would second that amendment. Karen.
okay, so you got to vote maybe to make that amendment then.
And I just have a question, like, what are your thoughts on that having a Tuesday?
I appreciate the consideration of the board to maintain structure for our students. So having the instructional days Wednesday and Thursday is greatly appreciated. I think it balances a lot of what people on the board and in the public and others have asked. So I think it's certainly something that I would not be opposed to. But I think you essentially are, that week is a little bit choppy as it is. But whatever the feeling is I understand the sentiments behind it. So.
Ashley, the clerk has her hand up.
Okay, Lisa.
Could we repeat and clarify the amendment to the motion and who was the second? I didn't get a name.
Karen Moran was the second, Lisa.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
The motion, Lisa, was to add the Tuesday to the April break. So instead of just Friday, Monday, it would be Friday, Monday, and Tuesday.
And what's the date on Tuesday?
Tuesday would be, I'm sorry, let me look it up.
14th.
Yeah.
14th.
Tuesday. Right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I will be the first to say, to me, I like the idea of going Tuesday through Thursday and then having a day though, or couple of days in May. I really do think that that would be appreciated to have that prolonged a little bit to move that. And I don't know how others feel, but that's where my head's at.
For what it's worth, I would like that as well. I would like to give a couple days in May as well. But I was just kind of focusing on like what the business that's in front of us and what these 30, you know, waiting to hear about. So I appreciate that, Ashley.
So let me go through here. Rini, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say as part of the discussion, I would prefer to just leave the 3 days, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as originally proposed. And we can always address a May day off later. I feel as though we're kind of down to, we've already discussed it, 4 days a week. I feel like the kids need to be in school. We kind of had a couple week break there, you know, at some level. And I'm wanting the kids to have the instructional time.
Mm-hmm. Jacob, you have your hand.
Yes, I'm also in favor of just keeping the motion as is. I feel that in these uncertain times, we've already lost a lot of instructional time. If we can get these 3 days back, I think that's for our benefit, especially considering we still don't know exactly what's coming down the pipe with the governor.
Okay. We have Dana.
Okay. I mean, again, like I said, I can see both sides of the coin. I definitely agree that we need to continue our momentum, having these instructional days in front of our students. And Dr. Willett, we did hear your thoughts and professional opinion on, you know, what's going on and keep our children maintaining safe distance and having something in front of them to do each day to ensure, you know, ultimately their safety while also continuing their education. But if I could, I'd like to ask the other educator on our board, Kate, what are your thoughts in regards to this? And I know that you mentioned what you're in favor or not favor, but what are your thoughts as an educator on how paramount or not these 3 days would be or not? I guess I would kind of defer to your educated opinion as well, with everything kind of going on. And I would also question now, what is your school system is taking that break, correct?
Yep. Crack is taking the entire week. We did start a week before though, so that should be just, you know, in the interest of full disclosure. I think that my proposal is really talking about the difference between 2 days in the week or 3 days in the week. That's really the difference. I think it would be a good measure of support to our teachers to value the huge lift that they have been putting in, just to give them that extra day, just to kind of breathe and to do the work, because they're going to still be doing the work, because I know what the educator life is like. You know, even if I'm not on, I'm still on. So I feel like it's a compromise, and that's really all I'm looking to do. And I appreciate the original compromise. I just, maybe just a little bit more. And that's kind of what I was hoping for with the Tuesday amendment. But I hear what you guys are saying. Is a day going to be a whole lot of a difference in terms of maintaining the kids' abilities and skills? I'll be honest, no. But like in the grand scheme, because of the inconsistency, I get that too. Will I still have a structure for my kids on Tuesday if they don't have school? I will. And I think that most parents can do that. So that's just those are just my quick responses, Dana, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Tony?
I certainly recognize and appreciate the input that everybody is giving. Personally, I want to stick with the original proposal that Dr. Willett put there from my perspective, because I want the additional day of teacher time between my student and my teacher. I want as much time as I can get between now and the end of the year.
Karen?
I would just say that, the 2 weeks before we started, parents that were working on supplemental learning and resources for their children and were having them work diligently at it, I think would have probably given them a little slack if they knew that we were going to be taking away April break. So when we talk about kids doing structure at home, that can still happen, and the teachers are still going to be working. Even if we did keep April break as is, they would still be working through April break, honing things and reassessing and shoring things up and making videos and doing all of that. So, I still think that Tuesday is still a compromise and would help them just keep their head above water. And I think that we need to do that now. And we don't know what's going to happen in May. So we could say, sure, let's give a day or two in May, but we don't really know what's going to happen in May. If we went back to school, then fine. But I think we need to give them their time now.
Christina, I see that your hand's up.
Yes, I'm not in favor of adding the amended day. I think everyone is doing the best they can and everyone is giving themselves grace, hopefully. But what we need to do is vote on Dr. Willett's original proposal. I love the idea of giving some days in May, but I think we need to cross that bridge when we get there. And that's really all I had to say.
Okay, so let's go ahead and would we have to vote on the amended first and then
We have to vote to add the amendment?
Will you
We never voted to add it.
I think you did a motion to add the Tuesday, you did a second, and you're in discussion on adding the Tuesday to the break, so you'd have to
close that out. Okay.
To vote on it?
So we're going to vote on the amendment of adding the Tuesday to the April break, is what we're going to be voting on right now.
Christina's hand is up. Did you mean that to be Ms. Plord or you?
No, I didn't lower it. Sorry.
Okay.
Dana. Okay, so Dana.
Yes, I'm sorry. I got where.
Okay, so you're voting on the amended April vacation, including the Tuesday.
Sorry, I got lost in that whole what are we doing thing. Aye.
Tony.
Nay. No.
Jacob.
Nay.
Christina.
Nay.
Rini.
Nay.
Karen.
Karen is a yes.
Kate.
I'm a yes.
Christine.
Nay.
And I'll be a nay as well. So motion does not carry. So now we're going to go to the original proposed days for Dr. Willis had for having the Friday and the Monday off, and having kids school for that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we're all clear. Dana.
Nay.
Tony.
Yes. Yay.
Jacob.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Rini.
Aye.
Karen. Oh, we're gonna have to unmute Karen, Dr. Willett. Kate
Abstain?
and Christine.
Aye.
We still need to have Karen unmuted.
Karen, can you raise your hand so you pop to the top? All right. Okay, Karen, you should be okay here. I don't know.
She still shows as muted on my computer.
Oh, here we go. Did that work?
She is free now. Go ahead.
Karen's a no.
Okay. And I will be aye. So the motion is passed for having the Dr. Willett's recommended Friday and Monday off. And then having the school progress on Tuesday. Okay, we will move to public participation. The comments must be on the items on the agenda, and we will do the same thing where Tony will still keep time, and with 30 seconds, he will raise his hand. And if you could raise a hand or star
9 for anyone calling in. Star 9 will be the way that you can raise your hand. Otherwise, at the bottom of Zoom, click participant on the right side. There should be an area for raising your hand. They may not be able to see, those who are calling in will not be able to see Mr. Holt. So Mr. Holt may want to make a verbal statement about where we are.
Okay.
Because they may not see you. That's all.
Oh, understandable.
Okay.
So I see Miss Costa.
Okay, Ms. Costa, we will have to unmute her and
Hi, how's everyone doing? Can you hear me? Yes, because first of all, thanks to all of you for figuring out how to prove this continuity of learning as well as this process with an online meeting during these challenging times. I just really do appreciate getting to hear kind of all your viewpoints. I would want to echo that I do think our teachers deserve one more day, just because of some of these teachers are doing dual duty as parents of young ones as well as teachers. So I would have liked to see us one more day. But all that said, secondly, I just want to shout my appreciation for all our teachers, our staff, our paras, the kitchen teams, the administrative team. I just can't imagine how much work goes into this. I'm just seeing it from some of the teachers' point of view, and I just can't even imagine. So I just want to say my huge gratitude. Third, I want to appreciate the parents, and specifically working parents, as well as those that are teaching their young children. I've never been happier to have 3 teenagers in my life, and that don't need help with their own math, and just call me a dunce. My husband handles math, and I handle the humanities. But thanks to them, I want to appreciate them. Fourth, I just want to say thanks to Dr. Willett, the national team as well, for continuing the lunch program as well as breakfast, and then adding it to the entire community. That really demonstrates community to me. So I really appreciate that. And then I want to thank the AD for keeping all the students apprised of what's going on with sports. And to add a parade to that is pretty heroic. And then finally, I just would love to thank Dr. Willett for his communication efforts.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Through the Google Docs platform, whether it be a video, I just enjoyed the TIS video, Spirit Week, online learning specifics, keeping us all up to date. I really do appreciate it. It's touching everyone's lives through learning, health, mental health, etc. And then finally, as you know, I've always been an advocate for one-to-one and proponent of one-to-one. I can't say enough how much I would ask you to do that. Look at that for the agenda for next year. Thank you.
Just as a reminder to public that you must state your name and your address as you would normally.
Sorry, Lisa. Liz Costa, 54 Josiah.
Yeah, friendly reminder. Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks to all of you. Stay home safe.
you too. Thank you. Was that why Lisa was on there? So she's all set?
She's all set, yeah.
Okay. Colleen.
Go ahead, Colleen.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. First, Karen, I think it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank
I just want to say, I hope everybody's staying healthy and safe because I work in the health field and it's just crazy out there right now. I appreciate the discussion on the spring break, which I am disappointed with. My kids never stopped once school was out. They never got a break. The last, especially this last week, has been incredibly stressful in this household. My son does more work than ever. I think the special education folks out there, the teachers, they're getting forgotten about. They have double the work, I believe, than the regular classrooms. I could be wrong, but everybody's just doing their best. I think I was hoping, I was excited when Ashley thought about it, but again, I think it's a minority thing going on. Lastly, Dr. Willett, actually, another thing is mental health is also, you need a healthy mind. So if kids and people get their minds fried, that's not a healthy mental state. Lastly, Dr. Willett, how is special education going for that staff? I know they're working 24/7. That's it. And that was Colleen Udacek, 12 Blueberry Hill.
Thank you, Colleen. Do we have any other public hand raising of anything? Let's see.
Reminder, *9 for anybody on the phone.
Okay. I don't see anyone, so I don't know if Dr. Willie, you want to respond to Colleen's about the special education at this time?
Sure. I mean, I think that all educators are working extremely hard. The education is a calling. I believe education is a calling. We go into the profession to serve, and special educators, they work with the special populations, and I think in a situation like this, they also are going above and beyond. And I think, as Ms. Udacek had seen, they're engaging with those synchronous modes of technology, the video conferencing, and a variety of other ways of making real-time connections with the kids. So, they are an amazing group of people. They're doing an amazing job. And again, Tolland is very fortunate to have such a dedicated workforce.
Perfect. I know under points of information, we have the town council meetings listed. So I don't know if anyone would like to speak to any of that. But then we just have the future. I don't know. In terms of that list, we're going to have to be waiting on a few of these. But if you want to go through.
Can we add on the future a discussion about the May date for our next meeting, perhaps?
Yeah, I will make sure that I think in the agenda planning, I am certain that Ms. Lundgren and Ms. Plord and Mr. Holt will want to talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have anything in mind? Would you prefer like a Friday or a Monday as an educator? Like, is there something that out of, going into it, just something that you find is a better choice?
What they would like. I wonder if we could poll them to see what they would like. Would that be possible?
Yes. At the discretion of the board, anything is possible, of course.
Okay. Without a whole bunch of work. I don't know if you guys saw it, but I saw Camilla's hands up. I don't know if it's too.
Well, we already kind of went to the future, but we can go back up. Kate. There's. Let's just finish up this future. Is there anything else that we want to see on there or added? Is everybody happy?
Being healthy and not killing your families. Yay.
Those are good ones. Those are top ones.
I think Mr. Holt's hand is up.
Yeah, Ashley, I just want to make sure, and I know that we're keeping an eye on the goal setting session. I mean, now that we've got this technology available, that may be an opportunity for us to sit and discuss some of those.
Yes, no, we definitely still need to do that. That's definitely a top priority. I mean, obviously it'd be better to do it in person than having a virtual, but that could also be another discussion that we can have for a special meeting, I guess, set up. I'm not sure how that would work with that, Dr. Willett, but I'm sure he could guide us a little bit toward if we can get a person to come in or how that would work. Okay.
Yeah, we definitely can. I'll have to reach out to people that would be willing to do it in a virtual format, but I'm sure we could find someone to do that. At the discretion of the board, we can do it that way. You can do a summer workshop, however you would like to do it.
Okay, we'll add that on there as well then. Let's just go back up to Kate so that we can unmute her and give her 2 minutes.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Kate Ballow, 80 Tolland Green. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was a little slow on the draw there. First, just wanted to express appreciation for everything y'all are doing. Certainly all the staff and the teachers, I'm blown away and very, very appreciative and really impressed with what this district has accomplished, and particularly everything that Dr. Willett has accomplished. So thank you very much. And particularly that's not a word, Lisa. In particular, the uplift activities have been just a bright spot and they're really exciting. And I know the parade is part of that. And I think that it's a really awesome and wonderful thing. But in light of the change of the schedule, I would like the idea to be entertained of maybe not having it on Saturday so that teachers could get a real kind of mental break or a time to be with their families. I know we have to deal with the weather and all that, and things are difficult. And I'm sure that it would also be a bright spot for teachers to see their students. But it's not a stepping away, which I think is also very valuable for their mental health. So maybe Tuesday, something like that. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Kate.
Thanks.
Okay. Was there anything you would like to add to that, Dr. Willett, in terms of changing a day for?
Sure. We looked at Tuesday. Tuesday has a 40% chance of rain, and the reason we had to move it back from Thursday, which is a work day, was that the rain looks like the weather was going to be bad for that day, for tomorrow. So trying to go to Tuesday might mean that we would have another bad weather day. Saturday looked like the clearest day. We did survey the teachers, and 79, I think, or 80 at this point are able to do it Saturday, the 11th. So that was the day that we decided to go with. And the next week is bad weather for most of the week, if not all of the week.
Great. Thanks.
Okay. Let's go on to new business. Is there anything else that we need to discuss for that? I think we got everything on our list. So I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Christina Plord, motion to adjourn.
Jacob Mari, second.
Okay, well, let's go and do the roll call. Well, first of all, any discussion? Okay, perfect. Dana.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
Jacob.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Rini.
Aye.
We're going to have to unmute Karen again, so let's go to Kate.
Karen.
Okay, and Christine.
Aye.
Karen, she's coming. She's almost here. There she goes.
Sorry, I muted myself, but then you have to unmute me, so I don't get it.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, perfect. So motion is adjourned. Have a good night, everyone. Stay healthy. Stay.
Bye, guys.